Hello and welcome to the Bond Revisited podcast with me, Joe. Oh, guess it's just me today. The podcast where we rewatch the Bond films one by one, discuss them and then rank them alongside the other Bond films to build our own definitive list of the Bond franchise. You're listening to episode 7, where we'll be revisiting the film Diamonds Are Forever. So yes, 2 years after George Lazenby left, guess who returns? It's Sean Connery, back again, 1971. We're ready to go to Las Vegas itself for some proper camp Bond action. Honestly, this is, we've been saying it before, previous podcasts. This is one of my favourites. It's so bad it's good sort of deal. And
Wait,
oh,
wait, hold on.
Oh, hey.
I'm here.
Oh, hi, Tom.
Hello, hi.
Oh, I'm glad you could make it.
I don't know what happened. The last thing I remember is last night I put some sort of disc into the PS5. Mm-hmm. I think it was a Blu-ray disc, and I hit play, and everything out is just, I've blacked out. I don't remember the last 24 hours since then.
Are you okay?
Well, I was found not wearing anything in the street, just grabbing people, being like, "Are you Blofeld? Are you Blofeld?" I don't know what that means. All I can remember is like an elephant winning the jackpot, but that doesn't make any sense, right? I don't think I did any drugs or any hallucinogenics, but I don't. What happened?
Oh, this has known to happen to some people.
I think it's like a 90% rate.
Yeah,
that this can happen.
It just happens with this film, and you just have to accept it and let it wash over you.
Yeah. So I did it. I watched the film.
Yeah, and you loved it.
And it's a complete 180, guys. This is going to be great. It's going to be such a positive, nice day.
I did say in the intro that this is one of my favourites. Maybe not one of my favourites. That might be a bit much.
Yeah, okay. So I've had plenty of time to complain about this film. I guess I'll quickly recap. I hate this film. I ranked it as my last one. I think it's awful across the board. There you go. You're up to speed. But we've never actually... I don't know what you thought about this film before the rewatch.
So... I definitely was in the glass half full camp for this film. I think I accept its flaws, but I think it's a very fun film, and so that's why I was very much looking forward to this rewatch, because I was hoping that was going to maintain as my opinion, and I didn't suddenly realize, oh, this film actually sucks. What was I thinking? And we're going to discuss it obviously, but I think I'm very pleased to say I think I still like it quite a lot.
Okay, that's good.
Oh, yes. How about you?
Well, I try to say, I think when I spoke about this in episode 0, a big part of me not liking this film is the fact that it was the sequel to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and it was also, the end of the Spectre storyline and Sean Connery's last film, and the fact that they took this approach is what made me so upset and disappointed and hated it so much. But we did say last week that On Her Majesty's Secret Service is much stronger when you take it out of the Bond canon and just take it as its own thing.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So I wanted to try and approach it with that mindset of, don't think of it as a follow-up to that film. Don't think of it as what it means for the rest of the franchise and, how this is probably the beginning of a new era. Like, technically, I guess most people would say this is the last Sean Connery film, so this is the end of the era. No. This is the start of Camp Bond, and this was just the prelude to the Roger Moore era. But I just wanted to try and take it out of that context and just judge it on its own merits and what it does well and just have a little bit of fun.
And
no fun was had.
Oh, no.
I was not happy about it. This was the first one where halfway through I stopped it and went and had some food.
Oh no.
And then came back to watch the rest, and I was so mad. So mad. I hate it.
Right. Well, okay. You're right. This is the start of Camp Bond, and we're going to be in this era for quite a while. So, it doesn't bode well for you. We're going to be in here for at least another 12 years? No, more than that actually. 15 years. So, yeah. Sorry to hear that.
Well, I'll just let the police know that you might see some more blackouts happen. If they see me naked in the street screaming again, they'll be like, There we go. Octopussy must have been.
Oh, there's Tom again. Must have been getting ready for the podcast.
Was he talking about midgets and what?
Who's Knick-Knack?
Poor guy. He just can't help himself.
Right, shall we get started then? I feel like you probably want to rip this off like a plaster and just get it done with.
Yeah, let's not be here for 3.5 hours if we can help it.
No, we're going to get here for 5. Detailed analysis of every Bond, of every Blofeld. Yeah, no, it's great. Let's start. So obviously, we start with the gun barrel sequence. Anything you noticed? You're usually the one to notice all the gun barrel stuff and anything.
I did. I'm glad you are. So they took out the producer names of this one.
Okay.
So as I pointed out last time, the circles came across and then came back, and we got Harry Saltzman and Broccoli Man.
Mr. Broccoli.
Mr. Broccoli. But this time they took it out and they went back to how it originally was, which was just the circles go across and then he comes back out. And this time it was in black and white for some reason.
Yeah. Don't know why.
I feel like there's been another one that's been in black and white, but I couldn't tell you which one.
Well, it's the same one from... Was it Thunder? Yeah, it's Thunderball where they filmed it with actually Sean Connery. So it's quite old by that standard if you think of it. But I'm pretty sure, yeah, it wasn't in black and white then, was it? So why would they have done that now?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I mean, he's got the hat back, so that's a thumbs up from me. So it is a solid start for this film. I think this is where it really peaks for me. Great circles, great walk, great shot.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the credits is where it peaks for you. Never mind. One thing I noticed about the gun barrel, and this pleased me straight away because I was just like, oh, this is such a good sign that it's going to be just very extra, this film, and just a very in your face with things. Did you notice how the gun barrel has a sort of sparkliness to it? It had like a rainbow shimmer around the inside.
No, I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, as it moves and you get I think it actually looks quite good. But of its time, it sort of almost had a bit of a actual 3D effect of the light going across it, but it was all sparkly, like diamonds refracting. I thought it was a nice little touch.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's definitely a very strong theme with those diamonds, like visually, so that would make sense they would start with that straight away.
Yeah.
So the circles go straight into this very quick sequence, or very cutty. I mean, it cuts a lot, this one. So the general idea is that we're seeing someone attacking people and asking, where's Blofeld? Where is Blofeld? Now, I say someone because it's very obviously James Bond and Sean Connery speaking, but they do try to hide him and what he looks like. I don't know if I think they're just building back up to, here's Sean Connery back. Here we go. Let's get that shot of, look, it's good old Sean. He's back. But we get a Japanese house somewhere in Japan and him fighting someone. And then we get Cairo. Basically, these people, he's like, where's Blofeld? And they tell him to go to a certain location. So it's Japan, and then it's Cairo, where a man is playing cards, and we get the first joke of the film, I guess, because he says, hit me, because he's playing cards and gambling. So Bond hits him in the face.
Wow, inspired.
It was great stuff. Up all night on that one. And then this eventually cuts to a sexy young lady there in a bikini, and we finally get the reveal of Sean Connery as Bond again, and he says, my name is Bond, James Bond. And so generally in this film, it did not bother me that Sean Connery was older, and I was expecting worse. But I feel like the worst he looks in the entire film might be this opening scene.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't notice that. But you're right. He doesn't look good in some places, to be fair. And he was only... I mean, it's only 4 years after You Only Live Twice. I don't know what happened in those 4 years, but it did not do him well.
Yeah, what was it? It was 1962 for Dr. No, and then 1971 for this film.
Yeah.
So, like, 9 years difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I think it's the grey hair that did it. And not that dyeing the hair would have particularly looked better, but they straight away be like, you can just see it. It's right there. and they zoom in on his face. They don't kind of shy away from it at all. It's like, look at Sean Connery's face. It's like, I don't really want to. Thank you.
It is kind of
I'm fine.
weird how they did do that. You're right. They did that sort of building up of revealing Sean's back. Just how they did with George Lazenby before. Not as good, obviously, but it is just it's weird how they do that for a couple scenes, very quick scenes, and then he's just there. Like there's nothing dramatic about when we actually do see him. It's just him walking. I felt like they were setting up to have this really cool reveal, and it's just him walking down some steps towards the lady. It was a bit of a letdown, a bit anticlimactic. And also, you say that, he says, my name is Bond, James Bond. There's something that's always bugged me about this scene is that it just sounds weird. I don't know what happened to the recording of his voice then. I mean, it's obviously dubbed, I imagine, or like ADR'd. But he sounds higher pitched. He sounds a bit chipmunkish or something like that. It's really weird.
Yeah, I found that throughout this entire sequence that the dubbing was for some reason just kind of bad. It just didn't sound right. I didn't notice it being high pitched, but maybe that was it. I couldn't pinpoint it. But yeah, for some reason, I mean, it's Bond, so we're going to get bad dubbing. But yeah, Sean Connery having bad dubbing to start the film, you're just like, there was no need for that.
No. Yeah, so the guy in Cairo says to go find a woman called Marie, and that is the lady there, who immediately, I mean, it's kind of record timing to get something on the screen that makes you go, oh, but then immediately Bond starts strangling her with her own bra, like bikini bra, and it's like, wow, this did not take long to get into this sort of level of like, eesh, let's just move on quickly. So I'm not going to say that this film's amazing in all parts, because it definitely isn't. And I think the start is definitely one of its weakest points.
I think they were trying to be like, yeah, Sean's back and look, it's Bond being Bond, because he says the line, there's something I like to get off your chest, and then steals the bra off her, but then like chokes her with it.
Yeah.
And there's so many things wrong with that, and I don't get how this was the first thing you have him do. Him going all over the world and beating guys up, trying to track down Blofeld, fair enough. And I did quite like the mystique that came with hiding his face. Like, this is supposed to be Bond angry on a revenge tour, just kind of being just blood hungry, I guess, trying to get Blofeld. So I like that aspect, and that's probably what they were trying to do here. Like, oh, the old Bond would have just slept with her and then got the info, but instead he just takes the bra off and chokes her. But I don't think it doesn't play like that. And especially with Sean Connery now looking so old. Not that a young man is allowed to strangle a woman with her bra, but this like old man doing it makes it like adds another level of just like, this is just a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think you're right. It makes sense what you're saying about having the tougher revenge angle, because this is really the only part of the film that tries to address that badly. But it's almost like Sean Connery didn't get the memo, and he's still kind of being a bit suave, and well, until he undresses her and strangles her. But you know what? It just doesn't work. It doesn't work with the way he's showing it.
No, again, I like the tough Bond, but this was not the way to do it. But eventually Maria says where Blofeld is, which I can't tell you where that is, but again, the film moves like a mile a minute in this opening scene. And we cut to Blofeld in this... Is it meant to be like another volcano lair? It's like another one of those almost like Dr. No style lair where it's all just very rocky as part of, like, it's one of them.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks weird. So I guess it kind of fits the bill for this film. Just mud everywhere. And I think it is, because it's meant to be some sort of plastic surgery clinic room, but it's got rocks and big mud pools, and I don't quite know how that would work.
Yeah, I think it's like a secret surgery place. And then we have Blofeld being like, hey, I want surgery, and this surgery needs to be done tonight, which initially I was like, oh, that's really cool. So they're going to explain why Blofeld in the last film now looks different, because he's had plastic surgery to try and hide himself. That's really cool. But as far as I can tell, nope, that's not what he meant. It meant that there was someone in a mud bath, and he's cloning himself, basically, or getting other people to become him, and he wants that extra version of him done tonight. And no, it's nothing to do with the actor being changed, as far as I can tell.
It would make a lot of sense to do that, but no. I mean, I understand why he would want like doubles of himself, because maybe he's foreseeing Bond coming after him, or I'm sure a person in that field probably makes a lot of enemies, so it's good to have clones effectively. But it was a bit of like an elephant in the room. Like, well, they're talking about plastic surgery, and there's a different guy playing Blofeld, so why isn't that the link? I'll never know.
Yeah, it was right there. And
Yeah.
it's almost like they deliberately said, no, that's not what this film's about. So we're just going to ignore it and hope everyone else does.
Yeah, which I did, to be honest with you, because I think the guy who plays Blofeld in this film, who we've seen before in You Only Live Twice, he was Dicko Henderson, Charles Gray is the actor's name. I think he's great as far as Blofeld goes. I think is actually quite a good Blofeld, as we'll see later on. But you're right, at this beginning stage where you don't know that, you just think, well, why does this guy look different, and why is he talking about getting people made of him, like doubles of him? What's going on?
Yeah, it's all very bizarre. But at this point, Blofeld then walks away, and we see a dead guard outside to basically tell us all Bond is here. And then I kind of missed this because this whole opening sequence was so tough because I wanted to do my notes, but everything was moving so quick. It was like impossible to take the time to get everything down.
Yeah.
And that's not a compliment, by the way. But so yeah, then we see, I think, a guard or maybe a scientist or something, I'm not sure, then takes off their face mask and it's Bond, and Bond is there. And he sees that there's someone in a mud bath, so he starts kind of looking around, and from this big mud bath where someone is submerged, there's a little gun just points out of the mud. And I think Bond spots this or uses his Bond sense to detect that. I don't think they actually give you... He either sees it or they just don't give you an explanation to it, because I'm sure he's looking the other way when that gun points out.
It's his Sean senses tingling.
Ah, yes, of course. I forgot.
Yeah.
Very wise in his old age.
Yeah.
So then we get this really awkward little role from Bond where he just like goes right up to the mud thing, but he just like... I just don't get it.
I mean, the guy's covered in mud, so he can't move very quickly. So for that reason, he doesn't shoot Bond when you think he should.
Yeah, the gun's pointing at Bond, but Bond just like, well, it doesn't even say that. He just walks forward a bit and just rolls, which again, this is an older Sean Connery, so seeing him roll is like, that doesn't work, or that doesn't flow very well. Just to get up close to then pull this lever, and then this lever drops a load more mud, and the man's like, no, more mud. And eventually there's so much mud that the guy drowns. Again, I don't know how that works. Wasn't he already submerged in the mud? Why would more mud kill him?
Well, I think it was super hot mud as well.
Not the super hot mud.
It was steaming, so I have to presume it was very hot mud.
Okay, but Bond then pulls him out later to confirm, or very shortly, to confirm who it was, and there's no burn marks on him.
That's true. Maybe only the big mud thing that Blofeld eventually goes into is superheated. How does this clinic work, I wonder?
I think someone's just made this all up. I don't think this happened.
Give me the blueprints right now.
So Bond then... I think Bond believes it's Blofeld in there, or wants to check if it's Blofeld, so he pulls him out, washes the face, be like, it's not Blofeld, and then Blofeld does show up. And with two guards. And something I noticed at this point, and I'm going a little bit off here, that Bond dresses quite differently in this film, and it starts with this opening sequence where he's in like a black suit, but almost like a more casual, smart casual kind of black suit. It's not like a tux, it's not like a spy suit or anything like that. It's just like a black jacket with like a black jumper or something underneath and like black trousers. And yeah, I mean, I guess maybe this is because on Her Majesty's Secret Service, George Lazenby had a different dress style and was very much trying to be stylish. But for some reason, they changed up his wardrobe. Sean Connery doesn't dress like he did in the other films.
Do you think it's also just because, it's the 70s and the styles are changing, and maybe like a looser fit suit and flares and all that sort of stuff maybe affected it?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, we do get some more classic Bond kind of suits and things like that, and I think some quite iconic suits come from this film, to be honest. But I kind of noticed outside of those, yeah, he just dresses differently, which you're probably right. It's probably them just trying to keep up with the times, but or maybe it's just the black is a slimming shade, and
He needs it.
he needs it. Yeah,
I mean,
we don't see any blue shorts in this film.
I mean, he's not. Let's just make it clear. Like, he's not terrible. I mean, he's like he's
No,
older, but it's. I think it's just because of the gap in time, and then the fact you had George Lazenby in between. Hey, you pointed out yourself is much more lean and slender, and so then you go back to Sean, who's this hairy, slightly flabbier man. It's like, oh, what's going on now?
yeah, they really paid. They really got their money's worth per pound on this one.
Oh yeah.
So basically the guards then come up and Blofeld's like, go get his gun. And I think Bond goes to get it himself, but then they're like, no, you go get it. And the man goes to get his gun in Bond's jacket pocket, and I think it's a cigarette case that he touches.
Oh, and it clamps on his hand.
Yeah, I think it was meant to be a fake cigarette case because, yeah, it goes in and it's a finger trap and he's like, ah, and there's like blood on his hand because apparently Bond gave him the old finger cigarette case trap thing.
That's a Q classic.
Yeah. And then this goes into a fight with the other guard where Bond just throws surgical knives at them, just goes over to the little trolley and just starts tossing knives at them and it kills one of them.
Yeah, I mean, there was like 3 in him. That's enough.
I mean, it would
die.
definitely take you down. He's in the right place for that, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then so Bond then catches up to Blofeld and knocks him out and just puts him on the trolley where I guess he threw all the knives from, and then just pushes the trolley into some molten, steaming mud, and then Blofeld goes into the mud.
Yeah.
And Bond's like, welcome to hell, Blofeld.
I don't really understand that.
Well,
yeah, I guess hell probably is going to be muddy. I don't know.
it's hot.
Yeah, hot anyway because he ups the temperature on the control and then and he slides. Blofeld dealt with. Revenge sorted.
Done.
Easy. End of film.
I don't even know where to begin with this. So again, I did say I was trying to approach this film as its own thing, but I have to say for this scene, which is so deliberately meant to be a follow-up to the last film, it's just terrible. Just really terrible. Like, the idea of the vengeful Bond going all over the world, that's a decent idea, but it just doesn't pull that off. I don't get vengeful Bond and him just on a rampage. I just get silliness. And, it sets up the tone for the rest of the film pretty well. And if they went for a more Daniel Craig grounded kind of grittiness, it probably wouldn't have worked. But this also kind of didn't work. And I guess I appreciate them putting in this type of scene in the opening sequence to try and tie it over, because if they didn't do anything, you'd be like, well, what happened from the last film? Why are we in this place? But yeah, what they did, it just didn't work at all. Like, you could probably just hear it in my voice as I described it. It's just nonsense. And I couldn't enjoy it because it was supposed to be the follow-up to the last film.
Yeah. I'll hold my hands up and say that this is bad. This intro pre-title sequence is bad. It's almost they were stuck between a rock and a hard place because it's either they included this as a bit of continuity, but having to do it with a new actor and a new and a new Blofeld, which sucks because you don't have as much of the emotional baggage associated to it, or they don't address it at all. And I feel like that probably would have been the smarter option, is just not to carry on. But then you would have had people, given how the last film ended, you probably would have had people complain about that too. So I don't think there was any winning in this situation because their kind of hands had been tied into this, having to have Sean Connery back. and then not really being in a suitable place to have that dramatic, revengeful bond, which would have worked. We discussed like it would have worked really well if George Lazenby had continued and Tracy's death had been now instead, and then the rest of the film was this revenge plot. That would have been amazing. But that's just not how it turned out. So I think the reason why I like a lot of this film is because it's just that from this point on, that is it with the whole Bond being married and Tracy being shot. Like that is just dropped immediately after this point. So therefore, I can then appreciate the rest of the film and all of its campiness and weirdness from that point out individually. So I'm kind of pleased that this is it and it doesn't try and prolong it. But I'd rather it probably not have been in here at all.
That probably would have been the way to go, as you say. Like, this is based on the book, although I think this is quite different from the book. I don't know if it's fair to say this is the one that's changed the most from the book since, or up to this film.
I'm not sure actually. I've never read the book, but I would have to presume, a lot of changes must have been made, given what they've done to Blofeld.
Yeah, and I want to say Blofeld was not part of this story in the book.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting.
I might have to look that up, but I thought, what was the Spectre trilogy? It wasn't this, was it?
No, it was Thunderball on Her Majesty's Secret Service. You Only Live Twice.
Yeah. So again, maybe that's not true, but I feel like they probably did make a lot of changes here with this opening sequence. But even then, I don't know if it would have been better to not do this, but still have Blofeld come back later and then address the Tracy stuff. Like maybe that would have been smarter, to just have it be a big unknown throughout the film and then have him come back. Like, I don't know if that would have worked. And again, with the way this film and its tone, it probably wouldn't have worked. But I would have quite liked to have seen that, where this was actually Bond completely failing, and then he ends up, going and doing the diamond stuff. He's still 007. He doesn't have to be super depressed. I feel like if this was a Daniel Craig film, that's how they would have handled it, right? They would have had him just lose in the opening, only for him to Blofeld to then just kind of come back and do it that way.
Yeah.
But, again, this is this late 60s, early 70s. This is old man Sean Connery. That's not what we got. So there we go.
So yeah, then we get on to the title sequence, which visually, I don't know how I felt about this one. So visually, it kind of goes back to what we'd seen before on Her Majesty's Secret Service, which, as we discussed, had the sort of slideshow effect of showing all the old characters from the previous films. This one was just a lot more traditional, silhouettes, sparkly things, women, and it was fine. Like it definitely played on the diamond stuff and having sparkly diamonds. I liked how it included Blofeld's cat with the sparkly collar in some bits. I just think that's kind of a nice link into the title sequence following what happened. So that was all good. I mean, song wise, I think it's Shirley Bassey once again. You mentioned how this is Guy Hamilton directing this, and probably should say that I think the reason for that is that after the mess of George Lazenby dropping out, and I don't know, can't remember the kind of reaction at the time, like reading about what the reaction on Her Majesty's Secret Service was at the time, but they were probably worried about carrying on and keeping a strong franchise, so that's why they kind of tail between their legs went back to Sean and offered him loads of money to come back.
I do know that box office wise, on Her Majesty's Secret Service, adjusted for inflation, is one of the worst performing.
Well, there you go.
Like Diamonds Are Forever did improve and do a lot better than the last film. So yeah, again, it's like, I think License to Kill might be the worst one overall, which makes sense because that triggered a semi reboot. But yeah, I think there was a noticeable dip in people going to see that film.
Right. So yeah, they obviously saw that and thought, crap, we need we need to get this back on track. So bring back Sean, bring back basically all the elements of Goldfinger, which was a very popular film. So they get back Guy Hamilton, they get back Shirley Bassey, who's singing Diamonds Are Forever this time. And I definitely like this song more as far as Shirley Bassey goes. I remember saying that I don't think Goldfinger is really a song that I would listen to out of choice, just on a playlist. I would probably skip past it. But I think Diamonds Are Forever is a little, I don't know, it's more listenable to me, and I think it's more of an interesting song. So yeah, and I think eventually with Moonraker, I like that one even more. So they got better and better with Shirley Bassey.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Shirley Bassey is the only artist to ever do more than one, right?
I think so, yeah.
If you disclude John Barry and the work he did and all that. But yeah, I think she's the only one to come back, which makes sense. I think if you were to pick anyone to come back, Shirley Bassey would be the one to do it. And going into this, there was a part of me that kind of wanted to dislike this song. I've definitely heard it before, so I didn't think, oh, I hate this song or anything. But from what you're describing about Goldfinger, I do have a general problem with this film, and I think a lot of the problems of this film comes from, hey, let's try and do another Goldfinger, because Goldfinger was such an outlier for those first, like, if you look at those first 6 films, Goldfinger is the odd one out. Even though On Her Majesty's Secret Service has an entirely different Bond, I would say Goldfinger's the weird one, and a lot of that stuff got put into this one, so I kind of just don't like that on principle. But then the song starts and she starts singing, like, damn, it's a good song. You win this round, Shirley. I don't know if I would say I like it more than Goldfinger, but it's like, it doesn't really matter, does it? They're both great, and it's quite interesting with this song because when I was younger, I did associate it more with like the Kanye West version when he sampled it. That's probably quite bad, but like I just heard that version a lot more when I was a kid. So I knew it was from James Bond, but I heard that one a lot more. So nowadays I don't really listen to Kanye, your boy Yeezy, I'm afraid. But I definitely for a good while there thought of that version rather than this one. So it is nice to go back and hear it. And yeah, some of these visuals as well. It's not amazing, but there is some shots I do like. Like there's a scene where there's 2 women silhouetted by the light of diamond, like a big diamond's in the background. And that shines a light, and that is what kind of causes the silhouette on 2 of these women. I was like, that's really cool. That's awesome. Unfortunately, most of this doesn't really do that, and it's just kind of a black background and just women, diamond, and a cat. But there was definitely better than the last one, and there was kind of instances of very cool ideas. It's just most of it is quite basic and to the point, somewhat like the last one.
Yeah, I think with diamonds, it's kind of, it's always going to look fairly interesting. Just stick a diamond in and a light and then get some cool sparkles and reflections, and then that's it, job done. I think that's what I sort of come away from with this. It's all fine, the sequence. I'm going to sound really old now, though, because I'm going to sound so out of touch. I don't know what Kanye West song you're talking about. Like the one... What one samples Diamonds Are Forever?
Like he just uses that Diamonds Are Forever line.
Oh.
And as like part of a chorus or something. I think it's just called Diamonds, I want to say.
Oh, fair enough. Oh. But I do like it. I think towards the end of the song where it starts to get you get that sort of disco-y bit to it in the background, and it gets a little bit funkier. I like that. So yeah, I'd say a solid but not overwhelming title sequence. It was just good.
Yeah, it's just weird because you would expect this one to kind of go back to that trajectory that they had before, where we were talking about how each one leading up to You Only Live Twice, they really were building on something and getting more impressive. Which one you personally like is kind of up to personal taste to a certain point, but they were clearly developing them. And then on Majesty's Secret Service just completely kind of went backwards on that, and this one's kind of stepping forward again, but it kind of feels like the damage has already been done. Like they kind of cheaped out and had a really basic one in the last film, so this one continues on that, and it's still kind of basic because of it. So it's it's a great song, but the sequence is just kind of forgettable.
Yeah. So after the title sequence, we get straight into the film. We get Bond and M in the London offices, off to go see someone called Donald McDonald, some old man, some old mustached man.
I did not pick on that name at all. Like the Diamond Man is what I refer to him as.
The Diamond Man, yeah, because M basically tells Bond, right, you've dealt with Blofeld now, so back onto a regular old mission. Come on. So they go see this guy, and it ends up eventually being about smuggling. Although I did write down about Bond, they've had this in the past about, I think it was in Goldfinger actually, where they had Bond and M go see the man at the big table in that film, and there was an element of Bond kind of showing up M with his knowledge, and it comes back again in this film with Bond showing off about Sherry and I love the eye rolls of M, and like he's just so sick of Bond. You can tell
He's
he
just
really
not even a little bit amused by it. Not even like, Bond. Like, it's not like, oh, you. It's like, oh, you. Stop.
Yeah, he is legitimately annoyed. So couldn't tell you what the whole thing was about. Vintage years for Sherry, but whatever. Yeah, they're there to go see this man who tells them about diamond smuggling in South Africa. So apparently there's lots of diamonds going missing somewhere in the chain. And they need to put a stop to it because it's going to eventually, well, they think that they're maybe hoarding the diamonds to affect the prices in the market and all sorts of mumbo jumbo like that. But eventually the man starts telling all this and it kind of cuts to the action as it's going on. So you see all like the miners in South Africa mining out the diamonds and hiding them in their shoes and hiding them in their teeth and showing this smuggling chain going on. So then they would go to see the dentist, and the dentist would pull out the diamonds in their mouths, and it's kind of a bit of a, I don't know, it was a bit of a strange way. I wasn't expecting this sort of editing for this film, where it's quite I mean it's nothing crazy, but it's actually quite interesting how it's doing it with the guys like kind of narrating all this stuff whilst we're seeing it in action.
Yeah, I didn't dislike it, but yeah, we haven't had anything like this before where it's an expert explaining something, so they just put the relevant footage as he's talking, and he's talking over the top of it. It might have been something that might have been better for some of these films, and it does actually really set it quite well. I couldn't tell you the details of all of this stuff, but
Yeah.
and I didn't really pick up on why Bond was getting involved. It just sounded like, oh, there's a problem, we got to go get him. It's the smuggling, but I didn't really get the details. But you get enough of it because you're just visually seeing, here are some diamond miners stealing diamonds, and then this dentist is part of it. And as you say, it goes through the whole step. So yeah, it was something different, and it's quite interesting because later on we see a little bit, and it then cuts back to them talking again in the office. So it's a very different feel. Like, again, this was Guy Hamilton, but there was nothing like this in Goldfinger, and yeah, it's a nice way of doing it and trying to save you from some Bond spy mumbo jumbo and just getting to the point.
Exactly. It was either a big wall of exposition that we get like in the last film, or this way, which at least is a bit more visually interesting. As you say, I didn't really keep up with the plot, and I've got to confess that that was the case for a lot of this film. There is a lot of characters in this film, a lot of people coming and going very quickly. I mean, we do eventually see sort of like the whole smuggling ring and everyone involved in it. So I think this film, probably more than any of the previous Bond films so far, is the one where I just say, like, completely just don't sweat it, right? Just go with it. There's strange things happening. Who's that guy? Oh, he's dead. Never mind. It's fine. Just worry that there's like someone who wants diamonds and we got to stop them. Like, that's
Speaking of don't sweat it, and I think I just got to the root of why I don't like this film. There was no sweaty Sean for the whole film.
Wrong.
What do you mean wrong? Where was it?
I even wrote it down especially for you, Tom.
I don't have that in my notes. Okay, I must have missed it.
I will reveal all when we get to it.
Oh, that's exciting.
Anyway, so in South Africa, as you say, it sort of cuts away from them in London and now actually kind of changes scene fully with dialogue and everything. So we get the appearance of Mr. Wint and Mr. Kid, the henchmen of the film. Don't boo them. Do not boo them.
Get them off.
I love these two characters. They're two very weird characters. One is like a kind of balding, long-haired, mustache man. I think he was in real life. He was a jazz player or something weird. And the other one was the guy from Back to the Future's dad. Who's the creepy guy? Crispin Glover. That's his dad.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, two weird henchmen who really are just on another level of like camp and cheese and hamming it up for this film. Like there's Blofeld level, well there's Bond, then there's Blofeld, and then there's these two. Like they're up there. But it shows them meeting with the dentist who we just saw in that scene, pulling out all the diamonds from the people's mouths, basically as a bit of a handover. So they're bluffing, kind of intercepting this changeover of diamonds. So they they get hold of him, they get hold of the diamonds, and then so the thing with these characters is one of the running gags, if you want to call them a gag, is that they like to.
I don't.
they like to get rid of the enemies, their victims, in interesting ways. You're never just going to get them shot or anything like that. No, or like a judo chop to the back of the head. No. More interesting than that. So once they've got the diamonds from this dentist, they kill him, and they do that for everyone later on in the film as well. So the first one we get is death by scorpion. One of them distracts them, saying, "Oh, I got toothache." And I've got to try and get it right now. Who's who? I think Mr. Kid is the mustache one. And
yes,
Mr. Wint
because I remember Mr. Wint, I think, talks more than Mr. Kid, and I remember hearing Mr. Kid a lot more.
Right, yeah. Mr. Kid distracts the dentist. Meanwhile, Mr. Wint plops a scorpion down his back and then instantly dies. That scorpion did not waste any time. And then, they take the diamonds, and then someone else arrives in a helicopter. You can hear the cogs turning in my head as I'm trying to remember. Someone else arrives in a helicopter, and they supposedly hand over the diamonds to this other contact. Again, faking, pretending to be just like covering for someone, covering for the dentist, I suppose. And then the helicopter flies off and explodes straight away. So again, blowing up helicopters, scorpions, and they walk away hand in hand into the sunset.
For God's sake.
which is a point that I suppose we should address. I know it comes up quite a lot. Is about the homosexual nature of these characters. Are these the first gay characters in a Bond film that are quite like clearly meant to be? And there are definitely clues and signs of that later on. It's not really. I don't think it really matters. It's just a very interesting choice to do that. And one thing I found quite interesting about these two characters is when I was looking them up online, because I do that
on DeviantArt.
On Rule 34.
We'll cut that.
cut that. When I was looking them up, on the Wikipedia, it says like all the times they've been referenced in other like cartoons, and there's even a reference in Fallout 3, I think it said.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like it's weird that these two characters in all of the Bond films have some of the most. I think people like these characters, Tom. I know you don't want to hear this, but they are referenced a lot. I think they're very memorable and ultimately interesting and good characters. I'm sorry.
Well, let's not throw words around willy-nilly.
Hey.
So, I guess I'll start off by saying, because I was thinking about this last night while punching the wall, because basically what this film establishes is that I said before how this takes a lot from Goldfinger, but Goldfinger is the outlier. But it takes a lot of stuff from Goldfinger, and I don't think it takes a lot of the elements that worked in that film. Or it took the wrong lessons. Like Goldfinger was a big hit, and it took the wrong lessons from that and put them into this film. And I felt like what these two are supposed to be, and other characters in the film, is a new Oddjob. And if you look at the films before this one, there's been no odd henchman apart from Oddjob. He's been the only one in the entire franchise. And obviously, he was very popular and did very well. And I think you said before, toys and stuff, right?
Toys and everything, yeah.
Yeah, so it then became an obsession that then, recurs throughout the Roger Moore era in this film of, we gotta have some odd henchmen. Like, we want to recreate Goldfinger, and a big part of Goldfinger was Oddjob, so let's get some weird henchmen in there and make them just kind of very distinct and stand out. So they just kind of throw all these gimmicks together, and that's what we kind of get. So to me, the homosexuality is I think it's supposed to be real, but I think it's more about just to make them distinct and odd. Like, look at these two gay characters. Like, I don't think it's homophobic. It probably is, but I don't think it was meant to be that way. It was meant to be like, look how odd these guys are. And we get that from visually how they look. They don't look very menacing at all. They just look like creeps. and then they make them act very creepy, and they say each other's names all the time, Mr. Kid and Mr. Wit. Although I guess it's worth saying that these characters are from the book, apparently. Like, there is a Mr. Wit and Mr. Kid from the book who's lifted on there. I don't know how much of the characters from the book was preserved for the film and how much was exaggerated, but I would guess quite a lot was exaggerated for these characters. And I'm just not into it. Like, I feel like I am more open to campy Bond than I might give off. I just think this is a really, 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 really bad first attempt. I'm just looking at my recording. I just sound the sound wave of that. I probably won't do that again. But yeah, I just think it's an awful, awful first attempt. And I think the main problem I have with these two, apart from the fact they're terrible, is I don't know what I'm supposed to feel or what sort of vibe they're supposed to give off. Like, with other characters, I get it. Even with Oddjob, you get it. He's this very mysterious, intimidating, but kind of strange and off-putting kind of guy. I got what they were going for. And other characters in the series are clearly supposed to be like comic relief. These are supposed to be characters that are supposed to be funny. It doesn't always work, but I at least know where I stand with those characters. I don't know if Mr. Wit and Mr. Kid are supposed to be funny, if they're supposed to be cool, if they're supposed to be intimidating, or what. I just get none of it, and it just feels like such a confused mess that it just makes me mad, and I just don't want to see them on screen. And the way they're used in this film as well is so inconsistent, where the first half of the film, or the first third, they're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. And then they completely disappear.
Sadly.
And then they just come back at the end. And that's it. And it's just like, why? Like, why is it done like that? Even Oddjob in the other film was distributed a little bit better, although he wasn't in the film. Like, Oddjob wasn't in Goldfinger as much as these two are in this film.
No.
So if you don't like these characters like me, the first third of this film sucks because so much of this film is about these two very off-putting, weird characters. And I just was like, I hate, like, anytime these two are on screen, I hate it. I just hate them, and I don't want to see them.
Okay, right. Well, I won't talk about Wint and Kid for the whole time because I realise we've got the rest of the film to talk about. But I do, just let me get this out of the way because I feel like I need to air my thoughts before we move on because this will be the last time I can do this. So what you were just saying then about, like, you don't know what you should feel from them, I think that works in their favour though. I think that sort of uneasiness that they're kind of lame and a bit dweebish, and then also they are sometimes a bit kind of weirdly sinister, and then they're just odd. I kind of like that you don't know where you stand with them. And yeah, I mean, they're not like Oddjob in the sense of they have an obvious, or Jaws, where they have an obvious, like, deformity or something, or like a weird gadget. But I think their thing is that they're just weird. They are just creepy. That is their thing. So maybe that attracts me. Maybe I'm just attracted to creeps. But yeah, and one other thing as well is you mentioned about, like, because they're implied to be gay, what does that mean for the characters? And I was reading about, because as I said, like, I read about them quite a lot every night before bed.
Yeah.
And I was reading
nightmares.
Yeah, I was reading about some people saying that they found these characters to be homophobic, and I didn't get that at all, because I don't think there was really any gags that was at the expense of them being gay. It was just like they just so happened to be, but they were weird anyway. Like, even if they had not been shown holding hands, and when Mr. Kid says, like, oh, she's attractive for a woman, like, if that was not in the film, they would still be very weird and kind of basically the same. So I definitely don't get that aspect from it at all. I mean, there's many things wrong with this film, and there's quite racist things later on, but I don't think homophobic is one of them, thankfully. But yeah, I just think they're very interesting characters because of their weirdness. But, and also one more thing, they have a great theme. Their little theme that plays.
Oh, I hate that theme so much.
Oh man,
terrible. What is this, Peter and the Wolf? Why are we hearing this like very specific non-Bond, like, it doesn't sound like anything we've heard from a Bond film before, and it just perks up every time they're around. I'm just like, oh god, this is, I mean, again, it's like, if you don't like these characters, it's like Thunderball in the water, right? If you like the water, then you're fine. If you don't like the water, oh boy, are you in for a trip. It's the same thing with this. They make their presence so felt with the music, with the way they talk, with the way they act, with all the scenes, that you can't avoid it. You can't just say, oh, whatever, I'm not really into this, but fine, it's just one part of the film. No, you got to look at it dead in the eye to Mr. Wit and Mr. Kit and just sit there and sink with these awful characters.
I would have loved a spin-off. I would have loved a spin-off of just these two. Just
doing what?
Just what do they do? What's their history? What do they do after this film? I guess they died. Never mind.
Yeah, and something I don't get is because it's implied that these are Blofeld's henchmen, but for some reason they're never connected to Blofeld directly. So these feel like their own entity, including this scene. Like, these are not henchmen in the same way that Oddjob was a henchman. They are their own entity, seemingly doing their own thing. But I think they are meant to be Blofeld's henchmen, but it's just not ever connected, which makes them feel like a complete, separated from the rest of the film. They're just these weird characters doing their weird things, and you could remove them from the film and it would kind of be fine.
You take that back.
Yeah. Yes, they put Bond in some bad situations, but they're not really a big part of the plot. They're just roadblocks. They just kind of mess with Bond a bit, and then he's just all right, and then it's all right, back to the plot. It's they're just you could edit all their scenes out and it would still completely make sense. You would lose very little from that happening.
I have edited all their scenes out just so I can watch them all together.
Oh yeah, you put them all together.
Yeah, and I can just watch it on repeat.
Diamonds are forever ... but it's only Mr. Kid and Mr. Wit.
Right, that's another edit we need to do. Okay.
2 million views. Trending.
It's coming, don't worry.
Yeah. So we'll try not to go... We talked about them a lot there. I guess we'll try not to go into them too much later on, but they are a big part of this film. And they're so, let's say, iconic.
They are iconic. For good or bad, they're iconic. Yeah.
For good or bad, you watch this film and you don't forget them. I'll say that. So after that, they walk off into the sunset holding hands. I think they're skipping, I want to say, as well.
Yeah.
And then we cut to this old white woman I think this is all taking place in South Africa or somewhere in Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then Mr. Wit and Mr. Kit go and meet this old woman who's teaching these kids. And she seems very pleasant, and I didn't quite get what their relationship was here. Again, I think it's just them infiltrating the diamond smuggling ring, and she's just one part of that. But for some reason, she knows who they are and is friendly with them, so that's what kind of made me a little bit confused.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand that. I like the fact that this little old lady who's teaching Bible to students is actually part of a diamond smuggling ring. Just the absurdity of this film is just great. But yeah, I don't know why she knew them. It just kind of went with it.
And so also in between this, we go back to the diamond guy. I don't really think he says anything much, but once Mr. Wit and Mr. Kit walk off, I think we go back to the diamond guy talking, but then we very quickly cut back to the old white woman and Mr. Wit and Mr. Kit, where she says, go to Amsterdam. I don't think it's the other way round. And then gives her the diamonds. And then that's kind of the end of that scene. And then we go back to Bond and M in the office. And M says, I think Bond wants to go to Africa. And M's like, no, you're going to Amsterdam. And that's when we get M just rolling eyes at Bond. Because Bond doesn't want to go to Amsterdam. But M's like, well, that's where you're going. So stop arguing.
Yeah, I don't really know how... So they go to Amsterdam because there's a known smuggler called Peter Franks.
They say it enough in the film.
Yeah, Peter Franks. I don't know how they knew to go to Amsterdam, though. I didn't quite make that connection.
Yeah, I just assumed it was the diamond guy who came to speak to them knows enough about the smuggling ring to give them enough info to say, hey, this is a known person, so you can just go and take his identity because he's going to be in Amsterdam. Yeah.
So then Bond goes to Amsterdam. Wasting no time. He's there at, I think it's Dover, the port of Dover, at the immigration, because he's off to go get a hovercraft over to Amsterdam, which is really cool. And this is part of the film where, so this is where I say Bond is there. It's actually Peter Franks at first, who then gets called over, says someone needs to talk to him in the room off to the side, and that's where they do the switcheroo. And Bond then takes his place in his car. And then we get a little scene with Moneypenny. So I almost thought Moneypenny wasn't going to be in this. And then I remembered, oh yeah, she's in this very, very quick scene with Bond here as he's about to go to Amsterdam. Just your typical stuff. She's all dressed up as a immigration guard and gives him his fake passport as Peter Franks. And a little bit of back and forth as per usual. I did think coming off of the intro and coming off of the previous film where Bond is now a widow, it's a bit insensitive of Moneypenny to ask for a diamond ring from Bond. I mean, come on, Moneypenny, there's a time and a place. Let the man grieve.
Well, this ties into what you said earlier, how like the film just then completely drops that entirely.
Yeah.
And I think this is the first sign of that, because at the start, M talking to Bond is like, Blofeld is dead, Bond. So now I want you on proper work. You can stop this craziness. And after that point is when it gets completely dropped. And this is basically confirming that Bond is not grieving. Bond is not fussed about any of this. Moneypenny, who was at the wedding, she was there and knows how it played out, is then just like, how about a diamond ring? And yeah, this is basically them confirming like, yeah, you don't have to care anymore because we don't about that plot line. This is now just a more traditional Bond film.
Yeah, it's nice of them to make it so clear like that. You're really, really in your face. Wife? Nah, never heard of her. Who? Tracy who?
Yeah, but I also like the little twist here. Like we saw in You Only Live Twice where they did the twist on the M and the Moneypenny thing, but I think this one works quite well where you get a more traditional scene with Bond and M and Bond doing his cheeky chappy thing or whatever and M not having it, but then you get to see Moneypenny later. It's not a massive change, but just seeing Moneypenny out of that office and speaking to Bond that way, yeah, it's a smaller change, but I think it's really nice. A good way of mixing up the formula.
Yeah.
And then I think the Bond theme starts playing at this point.
Oh, really?
And basically, yeah, I think they have now taken Peter Franks, they've taken him out, and Bond has just stolen his identity entirely and gone through passport control and stuff and arrives in Amsterdam. And it bears repeating, I said this last time, but I think it bears repeating that On Her Majesty's Secret Service opened the door in terms of just cutting to all these different locations. And once that film opened the door, Diamonds Are Forever ran through it, sprinting. So yes, there is Las Vegas, which is the main location of the film, and a lot of time is spent there. But if you I can't even count all the locations we've already been to, and we're not even that far into the film. So yeah, this is very much confirmed. And again, sets the tone for the Roger Moore films. There's a lot of stuff in here that is continued with those films. And that is another one of them where it's just so many different locations and they're not always set up in the same way the older ones did. And that's just the era of Bond we're in. Like, it's just a change. And I'm not a massive fan of it, but I don't hate it. You know, is what it is. It can work for the story. And sometimes I do like it. But yeah, we're just fully in that era of Bond jumps to a place with a jump cut rather than actually like traveling there.
Yeah, especially at the beginning of the film. As we said On Her Majesty's Secret Service, it eventually does settle down into the Alps and you stay there for a while and then you get more of that actual location. And the same thing here, you know, it does settle into Las Vegas and you get to feel Las Vegas eventually. But at this beginning part, if you include all the very, very short parts of the pre-title sequence, then yeah, we've been to Japan, we've been to Egypt, we've been to Amsterdam, South Africa, South Africa and everywhere. So no rest for the wicked.
No, sadly not. But yeah, Amsterdam. And we do get some nice shots of Amsterdam on the canals. But the very first shot we get is following this tour guide, and they're like, look at this bridge. Isn't that the coolest bridge you've ever seen? Then they're like, oh, look, there's a boat to our left. And then the camera pans over to that boat, and we see these two, I think, policemen pulling out this corpse from the canal. And then we see it's the old woman from before who was teaching the kids. Like, straight away dead. And then we see Mr. Kid and Mr. Wit taking pictures being their creepy self, saying like, "Oh, she did want us to take pictures for the children." It's like, yeah, very good.
I love their lines in this film. I think they were all bangers.
Not a bad line in there.
Not a single bad line.
And then this after them. So basically, they've killed her. Don't know why. Whatever. We then see Bond driving a mustard yellow car through Amsterdam, and something I do want to say here that yes, there is a car because there's a in the film, and there is a very iconic shot involving the red car. But generally speaking, even though this is meant to be Goldfinger and that template, Bond just drives kind of rubbish cars throughout it, like nothing of any real note. I mean, again, I'm not a big car guy. Someone who is more into cars might say, "Oh, but he drives this classic in this scene," and if that's the case, fair enough. Hold my hands up, I didn't notice it, but yeah, like I feel like Goldfinger, one of the core components was that Aston Martin and how great it looked. But for some reason, that's an element that didn't translate to this film. We just get that red car, and that's kind of about it.
It wasn't translated. It was improved. It was improved. Who needs an Aston Martin DB5 when you have a moon buggy?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about the moon buggy.
How could you?
I forgot about all the toys and the merchandising that came with the moon buggy.
And its little flailing arms. Anyway, that's we'll get there. But yeah, you're right. I think car wise, I mean, for me, who's not a petrol head, I don't really care about cars. Didn't really bother me. But there isn't definitely no sort of gadgety sort of cars that we've seen before with rockets and sat navs and everything. So definitely back to some more basics with this.
Yeah, and it basically goes to my point that I've said before, and I'll probably say again. This film takes a lot of stuff from Goldfinger, but it takes some stuff that you think like, really, you took that and went with that? But it just misses out on some stuff. And again, I would say the Aston Martin, a huge part of that film, and it's such a huge part of the franchise. It's weird that it's not here. Right, if you were copying that template, why didn't you copy that car?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. So Bond arrives at a random house in Amsterdam as Peter Frank still, and goes up to this very fancy looking lift and into the room, and it's Tiffany, trying to remember her name then, Tiffany Case, who he's meeting, who is his contact in Amsterdam, part of the smuggling chain that Peter's obviously meant to have met. And it's a very kind of a bit of a strange introduction to Tiffany Case, who is the Bond girl of this film, because you get a very brief flash of her, and then she just walks off into the bedroom and eventually comes out in different wigs and everything, which I guess is meant to imply how what she does as her business needs disguises and things like that. But yeah, so Bond's just kind of milling around while she's in the bedroom and having a look around, and she offers him a drink, so he makes a drink, and then I think she comes out in a different hair color and takes his drink and goes to put some ice in it. And in her bedroom, she has this quite advanced fingerprint scanning photo recognition machinery, I guess. So she takes a fingerprint of Bond's glass because she wants to double check if he really is Peter Frank's. And you think, oh no, Bond's going to get caught out immediately in this film, but no. She does the scan. It's all good. It's a match on her wardrobe computer. And because who doesn't have a computer installed in their wardrobe? It's a match. So she trusts him and sort of lets her guard down a bit and actually starts to talk to him about the business, about the diamond smuggling operation. Now, again, this is where you're going to have to forgive me, because a lot of the plot, and especially this part where it's going from person to person to person, kind of went by me. I think basically they just talk about taking it to the next place. The diamonds.
Yeah, I didn't pick up anything more than that. It was basically saying it needs to go to... I put down LA, but Las Vegas isn't in LA, so I guess... I don't know why I put LA, but they're just saying they need to go to America, and that's it. And then something about a load of money, but...
that's pretty much it. Just to say that, go to LA. And I suppose it is that... It's not a very cool gadget, but it is the Bond has these fake fingerprints over his real ones. It's like, okay, yeah, and I think he says like, oh, well done, Q. So definitely, I don't think there's anything crazy gadget wise in this film. Kind of does keep it a bit simple with most of them. I'm trying to think of other ones in the film. There's not terribly many.
There's definitely other gadgets, but it's not the formula that we had before. Just doesn't play out in this film at all. Like it's more gadgets kind of appear and show up as needed, and then they just kind of insert Q saying, "Oh yeah, you're welcome. Don't worry about it." So they cut to basically Bond calling Q, removing the fake fingerprint, and Q's like, "Yeah, I'm a pretty cool guy. You're welcome."
That was nice, wasn't it? Because you could see Q was really pleased with that. Like, give Q some compliments every now and then, Bond.
Yeah, treat your Q right.
Yeah,
it's important. So something I will say about this, as you said, Tiffany Case. Why did they have to pick someone with a T, like a tuff at the start? Tracy, Tiffany, like that's just cruel. Don't do that. But yeah, this is the introduction to her, and her character here is very different to the character we get for the rest of the film, which I find quite interesting because later in the film we find that she's more like an opportunistic klutz. But this one, in this scene anyway, I don't think she's kind of portrayed that way. It's more like, look at this sexy woman in the sexy underwear, and she's portrayed as being a little bit more confident and with it and things like that. And I guess that's a smart way of doing it. If you had her be a klutz and just be really stupid to begin with, you probably wouldn't give her half a chance. And instead they want to focus on Bond with a sexy woman. Haha, yeah, there we go. We all know this one. But yeah, like how she is here is very different to how she is in the rest of the film. And yeah.
She actually seems quite competent in this first scene. Doing due diligence and checking to see if there's. I mean, surely a photo of Peter Franks would have been easier ultimately, but yeah, like doing the whole fingerprint checking, and then you just cut to like her shooting at the end of the film and falling off the off the oil rig. It's like hard cut to that. Yeah, you're right. Actually, she does. I mean, I'm just going to say it now because we're talking about Tiffany Case. I don't think she's a very good Bond girl. Not very memorable at all, and I would almost say kind of annoying. But
no, what annoying? There's no annoying characters in this film, Joe. You must have had a dodgy version.
But I can forgive it for the film makes up for it in other ways. So in two ways in particular. Anyway. So yeah, they need to go to LA. So they grab the diamonds, which are in the lighting chandelier thing, and they get on a flight.
No,
they don't
at all. No,
they don't. I just jumped straight ahead in my notes.
I was going to say,
completely missed the whole flight. Yeah,
you're not listening to your cue. You don't treat your cue right.
I don't. Or I don't read my notes either.
So yes, before we get on Joe's plane. Which I'm happy to join you on. We can go.
No, it's a good scene that I skipped over.
Yeah, so basically on the phone when to Q, when Bond is talking to him, Q says that the real Peter Frank has escaped. So he took out one of the guards and has escaped, and Bond kind of ends up running off. And we then cut to night, where we see the real Peter Franks is showing up to the same apartment building. And we get a very odd little moment here where Bond is staking out the place, and as Peter Frank shows up, he pretends to be making out with someone, which is then just revealed to be him putting his hands on his side and moving them up and down.
Genius.
And it's like, I guess that would work, but it just seemed weird to see Sean Connery doing that. Like, it's simple and practical, which I normally like, but I don't want to see old man Sean caressing himself.
Is it Old Man Sean for the rest of this podcast?
It might end up, yeah.
Old Man Sean.
When he does something like that, it's Old Man Sean.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to clear that up.
And so then he basically goes in with Peter. It's because you got to be buzzed into the building. So I think Peter gets buzzed in, Bond follows, and Bond pretends to be Dutch and puts on this fake accent, which I really liked. I thought that was a really nice touch. I said how I liked George Lazenby actually putting on a voice, even though he was dubbed. But it was nice to see James Bond, or Sean Connery as James Bond, actually put on a voice. Like we always hear about, I know all these different languages. Put your book away, Moneypenny. No need. No. So even though he wasn't speaking Dutch, he was just doing a quite clearly fake accent. It's kind of nice. Nice to see the effort there.
Yeah, and I will say that uh, Sean Connery as a whole in this film, compared to his last appearance in You Only Live Twice, he just seemed a lot happier. I don't know if that's the right way. He just seemed a lot more into it, and that's probably because he was given a wheelbarrow full of money for this reappearance as Bond. Um, but yeah, to me, like when I think back to You Only Live Twice, where he just it was just he was going through the motions. For me, you could just tell that he wasn't in it anymore. He was sick of the role, and he probably is still sick of it in this film. But when you're paying him, I think it's like 1.25 million, like back in the 70s, he's gonna put it on. And yeah, like with these little scenes where he's doing this silly accent and getting into the lift, I could just see that he was kind of enjoying it, and yeah, I like that. I think it came through on the film.
Yeah, completely. It completely comes across that he likes doing this. And it's like some of the older Bond films where Sean Connery was in, where he likes, I don't know, I guess when Bond kind of acts the fool a little bit, or he's just clearly taking the mick. And this is one of them where I think Bond knows he's not fooling the guy. So you just see him just clearly enjoying this, like, hello. And yeah, that is quite fun to see. I did like it.
So in the lift in the apartments, they're going up, and then eventually I think it just fight breaks out. He tries to take out Peter in front of him, and it's quite the whole fight basically takes place in this very confined lift as it's going up, and then eventually down and back up and down, where they keep hitting all the buttons fighting. It's very simple fight. It's a very simple fight. I don't think there's any music really playing, so it's quite silent in times, apart from the smashing glass and a few grunts here and there. But I think it still kind of works. It was kind of giving me From Russia with Love train fight vibes, not to the same quality, but along those lines of just very very focused on two men like wrestling and actually trying to kill each other, sort of thing. Because eventually Peter grabs a bit of the broken glass from the windows and tries to stab Bond with that, and they're bashing the arms on the sides and all this sort of stuff. And as the lift is going up, Bond is at one point is about to be like decapitated as it's going under a bit of the wall, and comes out just in time. So yeah, I wouldn't say it does anything mind blowing, but as fights go, it's fairly strong, and you can see what's happening despite it being a very, very small location. And you can actually see Sean doing a lot of it, so that helps as well. That it's actually, you can see it's Bond in these shots fighting.
I thought it was fine. I think the lack of music kind of went against it. So music does kick in, for the end bit. But yeah, initially as the lift is going up and down, there is no music, and I didn't really like that. And I think it is probably because they are just kind of wrestling. And now the sound dubbing has been fixed from the previous film, where the last film had a lot of very bad dubbing on this. That's been fixed. There's like no issues with that side, but I don't think the sound in this is that strong enough to hold on its own. And it did make me think of that From Russia with Love fight, and that is probably what they're trying to replicate. But that one had a little bit more space. It also had a lot more interesting lighting because it was it was quite dark and stuff, but you were still getting like light from outside. And also you had the sound of the train. So you didn't need music because you could hear this train going on. And, this isn't the finale of the film, so it doesn't need to go all out. This is a simple fight. This is Bond fights the bad guy in a small space sort of thing. But it definitely is weaker compared to that film and that setup, and that isn't fair. It's not fair to compare to every single fight like this, but yeah, again, it was just fine. Like, it worked, it served its purpose. I don't think there was anything too memorable for me. It was just them kind of wrestling in a lift, but I don't think it really is that interesting, and I think it could have done with music sooner to kind of set it. And I do think maybe this was too small of a space to shoot it in. Because like you say, you can't see everything, but I just don't think they're able to do anything interesting apart from just grab each other, and then eventually Peter grabs the glass and Bond just knocks it off, and there you go. So it's, again, fine, not bad, but I wouldn't say all that great either.
Yeah, I mean, the fight ends with Bond grabbing a fire extinguisher, like a foam fire extinguisher, and spraying Peter with that, and kind of, I guess, blinding him with it, and then pushing him over the edge of the hallway down the flight of stairs, and then lobbing over the fire extinguisher. I do think, like, when I saw that, I was like, has this film got a thing about, like, mud and foam? Like, we're like 20 minutes into the film and we've seen a lot of, like, gunk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Had all the mud stuff and all the foam.
Yeah, you're right. It's very gunky. But I got the impression, and I might have been putting something together there, that he deliberately covered his face and tossed it off so Tiffany never saw him.
Oh.
Because
Great
at this
film.
point, Tiffany is watching the
film.
fight and is
Yeah.
like, oh, goodness. But of course, Bond is trying to pretend to be this guy. So obviously, Tiffany doesn't exactly know the face, but of course, that would be bad. So I think Bond deliberately was like, right, let's cover his face, get rid of this guy. It's me, Peter. No, not James Bond.
That makes a lot of sense. And just another bonus with this film. Thank you for telling me that.
The gift that keeps on giving.
I didn't even put those two things together, but you're totally right. That makes sense.
So after the fight, Bond then goes into the apartment with Tiffany, where she's like, "What's happened? Oh my goodness!" And before that happens, Bond does switch out the IDs. So basically, gives Peter his ID as James Bond and keeps it, and then Tiffany takes a look and saying, oh, "You just killed James Bond." And this is another time where Sean Connery gets to, it sounds like he's having fun in the exact same way with a Dutch accent, where it's just like, did I? Is that who that was? No, surely not. And very clearly fake, but so much fun. For the very same reasons with the Dutch stuff. Like, he's just, his fake acting is so fake, it comes back around to just be really enjoyable.
I mean, there is a bigger question as to how she knows who James Bond is, but doesn't know what he looks like. We'll gloss over that.
Yeah, the last film did it. You just gotta not think about it.
Exactly. I mean, his face was definitely in newspapers when he died, so like,
yeah, it was everywhere. Oops.
Really should know if anyway, it's fine. So once that's done, and she thinks he's killed James Bond, then they get the diamonds, and then they get the flight. I'm so sorry, everyone. How could I miss out on that amazing fight scene?
It's all right. Don't worry about it.
Amazing. It really was, yes. So on the flight, it's a very quick scene, but on the flight, you see Bond and Tiffany. And then in sort of like the section, it has this great dramatic zoom into an eye peeking from behind the curtain. And it's Mr. Kidd, who's in another section behind him, along with Mr. Wint. And so basically they're keeping track of the two. Should also mention that the way they're smuggling the diamonds is in Peter Frank's body. So they take the coffin on board and pretend it's Bond, who's as Peter, pretending it's his brother. But yeah, so Wint and Kidd are on their tail still. And that's when you get the very strange line from Kidd saying, like, oh, she's quite attractive for a lady. And Wint sort of looks over as he's putting on his perfume, looking unhappy at that fact. Again, weird, but I like it.
Yeah, I didn't laugh, and I guess you were meant to, but
I don't know what you're meant to do with those sort of scenes. I really don't.
Leave.
Get up and walk out.
Leave. Do something else with your day. Touch grass and just get out there in the world.
Oh, okay. So, this is the part of the film that really I start to struggle with plot-wise when we actually get to LA and the crematorium. So over to you, Tom.
Okay, all right. I'll do my best. So basically, Bond is still pretending to be Peter Franks, and he's still in that system of smuggling the diamonds. But when he goes to the US, then he goes through customs with the coffin. But in order to help him smuggle these diamonds, it's Felix. Felix, the CIA agent?
Yeah, it's back.
He shows up. It's again a different actor, and we've said it before, but they keep recasting this character and it just ruins it. So I don't really like this version of Felix, but at this point I'm just like, who cares? Like, yeah. I don't think anything they could do with this character would save it at this point because they recast him again. So it's a different interpretation, but it's just like, yep, American guy that they're just saying is Felix. There's no connection between these characters. He's a little bit more, I guess, like New Yorky. That's probably not the accent, but like, hey, Bond, how's it going there? But it's just like, you just don't care. They've had their chance and they've just blown it at this point. And, you know, Felix does eventually, I do eventually like Felix, but it needs a proper reboot with a new Bond and new Felix to get me invested in this at all at this point.
All of our New York listeners gone now, Tom. I hope you're happy.
Because of what? What happened?
You just offended them.
Whatever. Jabronis, those are.
Hey, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, I agree with you totally. Like the character at this point in the series is beyond redemption. You know, it's going to take a long time. I mean, you could say License to Kill is fine with Felix, but I'd say it's really until you get to like the Craig era and they realize that, oh, actually, maybe we should keep Felix the same to actually have that bond between them. So, yeah, it's fine. It's not a great character in this film. Just sort of lingers around and does stuff in the background, but it does the job.
Yeah, and he's in this film a lot, so it's another one that we'll probably mention a lot, but I don't think we'll talk about him a lot because he's just part of that America agent, because this film takes takes place in America for most of it. So now we're here. I think we pretty much spend the entire film in America. I don't think we leave again. And that's another way that it ties itself to Goldfinger as well, where Goldfinger was quite heavily based in America. So this is kind of taking that from that film, which I don't think is a good choice, but I guess we'll get into it later on. So yeah, so basically Felix helps Bond get through customs as he's pretending to be Peter Franks, and then he meets up with, I put creepy blue brothers because it's these guys who just in suits and stuff. I think they're supposed to be part of the crematorium, so they're supposed to look like funeral people, right? Funeral directors. Yeah. But they're just clearly like goons, hired goons, if you will. So they're wearing these hats, but these hats as well make them look like the Blues Brothers and stuff. And I think they have sunglasses. So Peter Frank meets up with these guys, gives them the coffin, and these guys are in on the smuggling scheme. And the idea is that they're taking him to the crematorium so they can get the diamonds. I can't remember what this character says to him, but they just have this very awkward moment where the guy just says something and it's just dumb.
Oh, yeah.
And then James was like, yeah, cool.
So, I think they ask about who the body is, and Bond, as Peter says, oh, it's my brother. And one of them goes, hey, I've got a brother too. And then it's such a great delivery of just like Bond going, small world.
Small world. Yeah.
That's it.
Yes. Yeah, I have to say this film, I don't like it, but these smaller moments that, because we had comedy in the other Bond films, right? And it was never like laugh or go crazy about it, but really enjoyable little kind of scenes and comedic moments. And when it goes for that type of comedy, I still like it. And I feel like Bond in the other scene pretending to be like, oh, was that James Bond, and doing the Dutch thing? And also this little line was more in line with that. And I actually did like these kind of little moments of Sean Connery as Bond playing off these characters. So it's weird, it's a little bit odd, comes out of nowhere. But when it is just these type of comedy scenes we've seen before, they were enjoyable.
Yeah, there's a few lines coming up that I wrote them down because I love them so much. My question is, I've just thought of this now, and I shouldn't really say this because it's uncovering more plot holes in this film. Who would have thought it? But,
what?
So they yeah, you're right. Like they're going to this crematorium with the coffin because it's part of the smuggling chain. But how would they have done that if Bond hadn't have killed Peter and they have a body? Like, what would they have done?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Let's
because Bond never. I'm assuming Bond never communicates with them. Or maybe Tiffany's supposed to be the contact, right? So I guess she might have phoned.
I guess so. Yeah. I should listen to myself from like half an hour ago. Don't sweat it. But speaking of sweating, we are getting closer to it because in the crematorium, Bond as Peter is there, looking very solemn. Yeah, it's my brother, and there's the guy that's in charge of the guy with the thick black glasses. Can't remember his name, but he's the one that's sort of telling Bond about all the stuff they have for the coffin, and then the little. Well, I don't even know what it is. Is that where you put the urn in the wall and all this sort of going through as a mumbo jumbo, basically about the process. But then eventually they get on with it. End up like cremating the coffin. So one thing to note as well is that at this point they have switched to diamonds, so they're not real diamonds in the body.
I don't think they say that though, or do they?
See, now there's a little bit between Felix and Bond. It might have been mentioned then.
That's the only time I think it would be. But yeah, we find out later they're fake. But I want to say we don't know they're fake at this time because it's kind of part of the payoff to the next scene.
Right. Okay. Yeah, maybe you're right. I couldn't really remember what Felix said to. The only thing I do remember is that one of the lines Bond says is like, well, I heard it as elementary, dear Watson, because he's trying to be like Sherlock. As into like, where are they hiding the diamonds in the body? But then I had to actually look this up because I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Elementary, dear Watson. And the actual line is alimentary, dear Watson.
Oh, it's a pun.
As in it's in like the stomach. And I was like, wow, that's hard to catch on, especially with Sean's accent. So anyway, I'm going back. So yeah, they're in the crematorium and they do that. They do the business, get the urn back, and being that they are diamonds, they survive in the body and they're in the urn, and that's how the smuggling continues. So Bond then goes outside into the little garden area and is about to do the switchover. Again, like keeping on the premise of this chain of smuggling. So puts the urn in this little kind of wall hatch thing, takes the money that's in there, because I think he was meant to be paid like $50,000 for doing this, and then immediately gets knocked out. So doesn't take long for good old. I think it is. I can't remember if it's with an implement or whether it is like a good traditional hand chop, like judo chop, as we've seen in many other Bond films.
I think. Well, I'm not too sure, to be honest.
I mean, that would be more elements from Goldfinger if it was just a hand on the neck.
Yeah, because like Bond walks through this area, but initially he walks past Mr. Kidd and Mr. White, but doesn't really kind of recognize them. So we see that they're there. Then yeah, as he puts it down, that's when they go and knock him out and take him away.
Yes. Oh yeah. How did I forget to mention them too? Goodness gracious me. They're there fiddling with some flowers, waiting for Bond. And this is where we get Sweaty Sean.
Yeah, of course. I
he's
didn't
knocked
really
out.
click. I don't know why it didn't click, but of course we did.
Yeah, like the sweatiest of Sean.
This is the ideal situation for Sweaty Sean.
Yeah.
I reckon they wrote this scene first and then had to put a whole film around it. I'll just put something together with diamonds, whatever, who cares? No one's going to watch it. They're only here for this.
A close-up of Sean, sweaty. Now, what would do that? Well, coffins are small, and hey, they're getting cremated. It'll be hot.
Burn him.
So yeah, Bond's put in the cremator by Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd, and they probably say some little line. They always have a line. Can't remember what it is now, sadly, but they always have a line when they're doing.
I didn't write any of them down. I'm not gonna lie to you. Didn't write a single bit down.
You monster.
Yeah.
But Bond, I think this actually is quite a good scene. But what it is, it's a very small part of the film, but Bond wakes up and he's in the coffin and it's slowly getting roasted. I don't know if that's got a name. Is it just cremator?
Cremating, right?
Cremator, whatever that is, yeah. So there's just like madness and there's smoke starting to come in and sweatiness, obviously, and music, tension, all this stuff. What's going to happen? And then suddenly it just stops. It's a bit of a, like, I wouldn't say it's a wasted scene, because I think what you do get of Bond sort of scrambling in there, and it is one of those things that's like kind of people's one of like a traditional nightmare about thinking you've been buried alive sort of thing, or waking up in a coffin. So I think it does sort of work on that level of it's not a very nice thing. But then, yeah, it suddenly just cuts and Bond is opened in the coffin, and it's the creepy Blues Brothers again. Whatever their names are.
Yeah, going back to the coffin scene though, it's very well done and intense.
Yeah.
As you say, there's no real payoff to it, but yeah, it's Bond waking up in a coffin, and then you get to see a lot of shots of inside the coffin. And I don't know how they got these shots back then, but then you get these camera shots of outside, and you get to see the fire really start quite small and then just roar, like massive flames surrounding this thing, cutting back to Bond inside, like trying to figure out what's happening and trying to get out, and seeing smoke coming through. And it's a shame nothing comes of it really. But yeah, I really like how intense this scene was. It wasn't really how's Bond gonna get out of this one, but it was just like, wow, that is really intense. And I think the fire and how much they show the fire just completely wrapping this coffin really makes you feel it in the moment.
I would have liked to have seen how Bond would escape that, to be honest. That would have been something.
Now Q's like, we've equipped you with the hose belt, 007. Let you put out flames in a pinch.
Now, listen here, Bond. We've got this new gadget. It's called a water pistol. Genius.
It's the Super Splasher 2000, 007.
Super Soaker.
Super Soaker 2. It'll make your enemies damp.
Yeah. But he gets out. He makes it in the end. And it's all the goons who are angry, thinking they've been stitched up because, yes, now it's revealed the diamonds are fake. They're fake diamonds. They've been switched out at some point, probably with Felix and the CIA. And I think Bond does say something about how the money that he was given would probably have been fake too, because why would they have burned $50,000? So obviously they didn't actually do it. So it's kind of like wires crossed, because Bond thinks it's them, and it obviously was Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd. So they're sort of playing each other against one another.
Yeah, like he's faking it while also walking out the door.
Yeah.
He's not standing there weighing around. It's just like wiping off the sweat off his hands. Like, once you get me the real money, I'll get you the real diamonds. They're like, we want those diamonds. And he's like, what? Bye. Bye. Sean's gone now. Sorry.
He needs to get off to the casino.
Yeah, he's off. So, but yeah, I think... So yeah, that's why I think the diamonds aren't revealed to be fake, because I think that's the payoff. Like, he got out of this situation because he gave them fake diamonds. Like, if he didn't do that, that wouldn't have happened. So I think that's why you only find out in this scene.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, this then cuts to Bond in a hot tub reading a magazine on the phone. I was like, okay, I guess this is our first proper shot of Sean Connery with his shirt off, so we can see all the hair,
all the muscle.
Yeah, yeah, the old man muscle. So he's in this hot tub. Like, I guess it makes sense with it being Bond, but I don't feel like we've really seen Bond like this. Like, it's one of those, when you think about it, would Bond use a hot tub when he was in Vegas? Yes, he absolutely would. But we haven't really seen him kind of indulge in this way. Maybe the closest, maybe like Thunderball or something, but it stood out to me because it was like, wow, Bond just reading a magazine on the phone in a hot tub, right? Wow, okay, I guess that makes sense, but I never put that together.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just indicative of the location, right? Like, you would never see Bond do this in Jamaica, I suppose, or somewhere like that, but he'd be in some fancy hotel at the bar. But here he's in Vegas, and Vegas just has that more sort of gaudy, I don't want to say trashy, but it has kind of a bit more. Okay, I'll just go for trashy. Although I would like to go to Vegas, but I think Bond is just fitting into where he is, and like there's things later on you see it just looks terrible. Like there's a fish tank bed that comes up at some point, and it's just like, ew, why is that a thing? But it's like, oh right, this is Vegas in the 70s, so that's why.
Yes, so this was basically our first taste of the Vegas lifestyle, which becomes a massive part of this film from here on out. And while Bond's on the phone asking for the diamond, the reason he's reading this magazine is for story reasons, basically, because there was an old man who was at the crematorium. He was all like, you need to give me the diamonds. And Bond's like, no way, and walks off. But he sees in the magazine a picture of the very same person. I can't remember what he has a nickname. Is it Stamp?
His name is Shady Tree.
Shady Tree. everybody. And yeah, he sees that he's basically a stand-up comedian in Vegas and has a show. So it was like, right, I want to get to the bottom of this. So he's reading the magazine, sees the guy, and then we cut again to him going to that casino Vegas area. I want to say there's like 2 or 3 different locations here and casinos. I want to say one's called like Circus.
One's just called the White House.
Yes.
But White spelled differently. They're probably, I think there are others as well.
Yeah, so I think this might be Circus he goes to? Or is it the other one?
I honestly don't know. They all blend together. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, they all look the same, really.
Yeah.
Apart from the circus one does have a circus, I guess. But yeah, so it just cuts to him, says, I'm going to go see a show, and it cuts to him going to track down this guy. And this is where we get him in the white tuxedo. And I guess he looks good. I do like the white tuxedo, but this is like a different spin on it, right? It's white, and he's got the... Does he have the red flower here?
I think so.
Yeah, because I think it's a part of it, right? But then instead of being all white, which probably would have been a bit too much, to be honest, I think it was a good choice here. And he's just wearing black trousers. And yeah, it's an iconic look. I kind of wish they didn't use it in this film where Sean's a little bit older. But yeah, I mean, it's a nice suit.
Yeah, not quite pulling it off in the same way as the pre-title sequence to Goldfinger, but it's fine. It looks all right. So yeah, he comes into this casino. I just love how one of the sort of establishing shots is him walking past and noticing a poster or like on an easel or something, a poster for Shady Tree and his stand-up act. And I just had to laugh at the photo that they have for Shady Tree. And it's this old man. And you think for having a publicity shot, he'd have some nicer photos. But it's just this picture of him like looking really angry and like sort of growling to the side. It just really made me laugh. Like that's the picture he would have used for his like big Vegas advertising. It's just a sad little angry old man on a poster.
Is he like cross-eyed in some of these pictures as well? His eyes look a bit off.
Yeah, I think Shady Tree needs to get a better agent by the looks of it.
Yeah, for a lot of reasons, as we're going to find out. So his Shady Tree is on stage doing a stand-up with 2 women, very Vegas-looking women in all the gear and stuff, and telling all his jokes. And we have Mr. Wit and Mr. Kid at the front watching it. I don't know if we see them laugh at all. I don't think so.
Are they in? Joe, I missed that. I actually missed that they were there.
Yeah, they were at the... Yeah, they were watching him.
Well, I say I missed it. So people listening, you're going to have to realize at this point in the film, I was into this, right? I'm enjoying it by this point, and therefore less time to write notes. So I'm gonna be winging it now because I know that this is true. Like I was actually just enjoying watching the film, and then so I just went with it, and then that's where plot details start to weave in and out a little bit less. And
if you put this as your number one, this is gonna.
Well, we'll
you've
get there.
Never had done this before. You've never said, sorry, Tom, I don't have notes because I was too busy enjoying it. Nelfa from Russia with Love, Thunderball, Dr. No. It's got to be Mr. Wit and Mr. Kid. That's the one that sends Joe into a trance of like, oh, I'm not doing a podcast anymore. I'm just watching this great film. Can't miss this. I can't miss a single second.
I can't. I have no time to pause. All right.
No time to pause.
No time to pause. I need to enjoy every second of this. So yeah, I do apologize. I might get things wrong plot wise here, but that's just because I was there, happy.
Awful. So I'll carry on then.
Please do.
Because I guess I was paying attention. So are you, to be fair. But yeah, so Mr. Wit and Mr. Kid was watching them, and as we know, I do find this a little bit confusing because I thought the comedian guy was working for Blofeld, but I think this is supposed to be disconnected from that because basically Mr. Wit and Mr. Kid is just killing everyone who's involved in this chain. So as a part of that, oh no, he doesn't. No, okay, yeah, all right, I've just figured that out in my head. So he goes to see the old man comedian backstage, and then we cut to Bond later going backstage and finding Shady Tree dead on the ground. And then I think at this point we then see Mr. Wit and Mr. Kid talking to the casino owner, who I did write down. Is that Bert?
Yeah, Bert Saxby.
Bert Saxby. So he does work for, well, he works for somebody. I won't say who, I won't say. So then saying like, oh, we need to keep him alive. And they say, well, that's unfortunate. And it turns out like, yeah, they're dead. Because basically Saxby has found out that the diamonds were fake. So they were like, well, if they're fake diamonds, we need to actually get the real diamonds. And it's kind of, I guess they don't know this is Bond or anything like that. They don't know Bond's kind of a part of this. They just think they're trying to, infiltrate this diamond smuggling to steal the actual diamonds. So once they find out, oh, these aren't real diamonds, that's when they need the actual diamonds, but the damage has already been done. So I don't think Bond has any plans after this. He's just like, oh, that sucks. I guess I'll go play some craps, I guess.
This is probably like actual Sean Connery shining through now, whereas like, you know what, let's just play some games for a while. Let's do a bit of gambling, maybe some golf later on.
Yeah, I'm in my suit. I'm looking good. I'm feeling good. Let's go and just a few rounds.
Relax. I mean, what you're saying there, like, there's part of the reason why I just sort of went with this, because there is a lot of sort of back and forth with this diamond stuff, and yeah, like Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd are killing every step of this diamond smuggling chain, but they work for Blofeld, so are they just trying to like shut it down now because they have the amount of diamonds they need? So they're just trying to get rid of this chain as evidence?
Maybe, but I take it more as Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd, the grey cows that they are just all about killing people, and their assignment is, we just need to get these diamonds. So they're going to get those diamonds, but because they like killing people, they just kill everyone along the way. But obviously, Baxby and Blofeld won't care as long as they get their diamonds.
Right. Okay. But then, yeah. But I suppose like they killed the dentist who would have been getting them. Do you know what? It's fine. It's fine.
Well, obviously, for the plan to work, they do have enough diamonds.
Yeah.
Like we find out later, they did have enough once they get the real diamonds. So maybe they knew that. Maybe they just didn't care. It's not clear. We shouldn't care either.
Exactly.
But I will say, while we're on this topic, and it's something that I didn't like about this film, shock horror, that is unrelated to the other films and stuff. I find this diamond smuggling stuff really boring. Like, I don't think I engaged with any of this stuff or found it interesting. I didn't find this whole, the explanation at the start, that was kind of neat, I suppose. But everything else, and the fact that we spend so much time on this film talking about these diamonds, and it's such a big deal, that the story for this film, to me, I just think it's kind of terrible. And it only picks up again when Blofeld is revealed. That's when I get back into it story-wise, and I like that stuff with Blofeld. But he disappears for most of this film, and we're just following Mr. Wint, Mr. Kidd, and the diamond smuggling, things like that. I think this premise is just boring. I don't think it's interesting. I don't think it's interesting everyone just dying in this smuggling ring. I don't think there's enough mystery there to keep me invested. It's just Bond getting involved with diamond smuggling, and it bored me to tears. It really bored me.
I mean, the premise isn't a good one. I will agree with you with that. It's just one, diamonds are going from one person to another, to another, to another. I would say that the film kind of keeps it interesting, despite that, in kind of, well, Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd being one example, but with the whole like the crematorium thing and just little bits like that sprinkled in, I think just about keep me going, and the bad cheesy lines and terrible jokes. But I would agree that in terms of like overall plot of this film, it is a bit crap. Like it's all over the place, but very at the same time empty. Like there's just nothing really to it. So
yeah, it's very weak, and it's strange because previous films I think have been quite interested in terms of Spectre plots and trying to like flesh those out. Maybe it's not super complicated like in on a Majesty Secret Service, that is brainwashing a load of women called angels and sending them out there, but it still kind of sells it enough, and you got the Bond falling in love stuff to make it work. But I think this might be the first one where the story is just kind of naff. I mean, it's not what it's focused on, as you say. If you enjoy the campiness and the characters and things like that, there's enough to get you through this film. But for me, I didn't. Then I was like, okay, well, let's just take it as a Bond film and a Bond plot, and this as a Spectre storyline. It's just dreadful. It's just dreadful, and it's just not enough to keep me involved. But again, once Blofeld's reintroduced, he's a ton of fun and kind of picks things up. I do get into the story more, but for most of this film, I am just not into this story, and it's weird because this is the first time I really felt that in any of these Bond films.
It's funny when you say about, you just mentioned the word Spectre, because it's like, yeah, I don't really even, this film doesn't even seem like Spectre to me, even though it's Blofeld, because there's no real other, you don't get any numbered people, and it's more just like, if the other films were Spectre, this is just Blofeld. Even though he has this giant, he's managed to, as we later see, like, got all these operations going on, it doesn't feel as big and dramatic as previous films where he's got number 1, number 5, number 2, all that sort of stuff all around the world. This just feels like Blofeld on his own to an extent, which is a bit strange.
There's no organization, is there? There's no hints at all of a big organization. It's just Blofeld taking over an organization, which is a cool premise.
Yeah.
I just don't think they do much with it.
Yeah. Anyway, where were we? We were Shady Tree has just been killed.
Axed off.
By the way, because I love this one so much, I actually, for the first time during this podcast, I went and watched the deleted scenes.
Oh my God. Is there more Mr. Wint and Mr. Kid footage?
Yes, there is, because you see them kill Shady Tree in a deleted scene.
All right.
And I won't go into the specifics of it, but they kill him with one of those like bang guns with a flag. So just about on the level you'd expect.
Did you like my axe joke, by the way?
Wait, how did they actually die?
No, 'cause axed off.
Axe. Where's axes in this film?
No, because he's called Shady Tree.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
pretty
good, right?
Bravo. That's it. I'm not smart enough for that sort of level. I need this film's level of jokes.
Bond comes in, tree go down. Oh, timber!
I'm a simple man, Tom. Simple man, simple pleasures.
Speaking
Bond,
of simple,
yes. We then get Bond just sort of going around the casino for a bit and playing craps, and that's where he meets, I guess, the secondary Bond girl of this film, though she's not really in it very much, and that's Plenty O'Toole, who's great. Well, I was gonna say great name. It's a terrible name. Terrible name. But it's a pretty terrible character, really, ultimately. So yeah, she's just this girl that this woman that sort of watches Bond spend loads of money at the table and immediately, is attracted to that. So flirts with him and rolls dice for him and craps and all that sort of stuff. And they bond a little bit, but there isn't really much between these two characters. She is in the film a little bit more, but really very, very minimal. It's just fine, I suppose, but I think she's meant, the impression I get is that she's meant to be seen as like putting on this sort of act of being dumb and like warming to rich men and getting money off of them, because I think there's like another man that she says that to when he's lost all his money. She's like basically palms him off. So I kind of like that idea of it, and I suppose it's kind of similar to Tiffany Case and that aspect. But then actually she does just look dumb. Like, I don't really get much of the kind of ploy behind her actions. She just seems stupid, so it's kind of wasted.
I think there's two things for me to know about this character. The first of all is that when Quantum of Solace did the whole Strawberry Fields, I think she was called, Bond trope, as in like specifically calling back to it, this is the one. Like, a woman gets involved with Bond, she's incredibly stupid, they sleep together, and she dies. That's like, I feel like this is the perfect capitalization of that idea, and seeing it play out like this is kind of crazy, because again, they mock it in future ones, but you kind of think, oh, in Quantum of Solace, they're speeding this up and, changing it to exaggerate it to make their point. No. Like, the comedy version and the exaggerated version in Quantum of Solace is the exact same as this one in this film. And it's kind of bizarre. And second of all, I find it odd that Plenty is very similar to Tiffany, just isn't on a screen as much, because as we find out, Tiffany is very opportunistic and is kind of dumb and plays up to whoever she needs to. And it's weird that we get a Bond girl, a secondary Bond girl, who's exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's just her arc and what happens to her is very short compared to Tiffany's. And it would have been better. I think Plenty might have gone over a little bit better if Tiffany wasn't literally the exact same.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, no, as I say, I don't. There's like, it's one of those characters. It's like, well, is this character just in the film? She's not, but is this character just in the film for that joke about her name? Is that it?
Yeah.
And kind of, although she does come back later on. So anyway, and again, another deleted scene. Actually, I'm not going to say every deleted scene in this film, but there is a deleted scene where they're having dinner together. But they eventually go back to the room. Go back to it's Bond's room. Yeah, Bond's room together. About to flirt and everything. But as they get in there, she starts to undress. Who's in the room? It's all of the crematorium goons and the main guy. I don't know if he's got a name, the main guy that leads them all. But they're there obviously to now get the real diamonds because they know that they're fake and that Shady Tree's dead, so they need to get the link back up. And they take Plenty O'Toole, who's now like in her knickers basically, and just lob her out the window. Like it's just so quick. They just get rid of her immediately. I mean, there is a bit of a gag of like afterwards the guy says, I didn't know there was a pool there, because she goes and falls down into a swimming pool outside. But yeah, she's gone now for a little while, and it's just them and Bond. And then this is more weirdness as well, because they, am I right in thinking they go to attack Bond?
No.
Why do they
I
leave?
think I think Bond goes to attack them.
And they all just sort of shuffle out.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just a bit weird how they did that, but they do eventually leave, and Bond finds Tiffany in his room. Yeah, and what they talk about, I guess, well, the idea is that Tiffany now wants to know where the real diamonds are, and kind of starts to trick Bond into saying, "Oh, you know, let's break the chain. Let's just run away and steal the diamonds and do our own thing." And I guess Bond is playing along with that. As now, here's my question: she still thinks he's Peter at this point, doesn't she?
Yeah, or she doesn't let on otherwise.
Right. Okay. Because it just kind of feels like they're both double crossing each other, which they are. So yeah, she says, let's go get the real diamonds, and then we can go away and start our own life. And I think that's just like, that's it. That's the plan, right?
Yeah, so also I just on the show, well, first of all, the Plenty being in front of the window is hilarious. I mean, she is a comedy character through and through. I knew where I stood with Plenty, I can tell you that much. But I took the Blue Brothers walking out of the room awkwardly, as in Tiffany is still in that organization working with them. So she's saying, just get Plenty out of the room, throw her out the window, I don't care, and then I'll get the diamonds off Bond, which is why that happens.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But at this point is when I actually wrote the story is really boring, because when they were talking in bed about the diamonds and, they're double crossing each other and stuff, you know, similar to the Dr. No scene that we had, but this is when it really hit home that I don't care at all about what they're talking about.
I can't remember anything that they said, so kind of maybe the same.
Yeah, so again, the agreement is that we're going to run away together, and she's talking about splitting the diamonds and stuff, and let's leave tonight. And then, oh god, yeah, Bond's like, I'll get the diamonds, and she's like, no, I'll get the diamonds. And eventually this asks to basically, Bond agrees that Tiffany can go and get the real diamonds, and asks where the diamonds are, and Bond's like, yeah, at the circus, of course. I swore quite a few times in my notes, which I'm not repeating, and this was one of them, because it's like, yeah, they're at the circus, so we just cut to a bloody circus. It's like,
Yeah, it's called Circus Circus. There's extra
It's Circus
circus.
Circus, the circus.
You don't. People aren't happy with one circus. They need 2 circuses.
But it's like, I know this is a campy film and has this tone. It just feels like, oh my god, they actually just cut to a circus going on. And maybe it's because I'm not that fussed about Vegas, because, circus in Vegas, that's not crazy. His in Vegas, it does somewhat kind of make sense, but like, it still felt very, very odd of like, oh no, okay, we're actually at a circus and here's people doing tricks and here's a big crowd of everyone enjoying a circus. It's like, why am I watching a circus? I don't want to see this.
Like, because isn't it like there's like a trapeze thing going on above all the people gambling?
Yeah.
Isn't that great? You can
That's
play your
crazy.
slots and then look up and there's someone swinging around on tightrope and all this sort of stuff. I want to go there.
It's just a circus. And I was guessing, by the way this plays out, that Bond, because there's no agreement to where the real diamonds are going to be, Felix is meant to be sorting that out, but he basically improvises it. He's like, yes, I hid them in the circus. So then he has to like call Felix up and say, guys, I messed up. Okay. I told Tiffany they were in the circus. Can we do this? Can we set this up? Which Felix is like, yeah, we can. And that's what happens.
Yeah, let's set up the most complex and just most stupid way to give her the diamonds using like messages on cards and water balloon games. That's the way to do it. Oh, yes. That will cover our tracks nicely.
Yeah, they couldn't just had a US agent go up to her and say, here's the diamonds and then walk off. Like,
No. Has to be in all the different games and stuff. So yeah, we do cut to Circus Circus. I wrote down in my notes here, the only thing I wrote down is elephant real? Because there is, as you mentioned earlier, there is a scene where an elephant gambles on a slot machine, and hey, it comes up with the 3 elephants, and the elephant wins.
And the others are, yay.
Well, at first I was like, that's not a real elephant. And then I looked at its eyes, and I was like, that's a real elephant.
Yeah,
And then
they don't do fake animals in the Bond series, not yet.
Not in the 70s anyway, and then it made me sad. So that's if I'm giving this film marks for everything, like Mr. Wint, Mr. Kid, loads of marks. Tick, 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 tick. Real elephants? No, take a few off for that. Don't like that.
Well, you didn't know that it was actually just Sean Connery with a trunk. You look close enough.
Oh my god. You better be glad he's dead, or else he'll be after you.
I mean, that doesn't make it better, does it?
I don't know. But yeah, so there's an elephant gambling, and this is where you get
You're just gonna cash.
yeah.
So
Let's
yeah,
move
it's James Bond. There's an elephant gambling. Yada yada yada. You know the setup. We've all been here before.
So this whole scene, as you said, like Felix has set up this handover of the diamonds in Circus Circus, and it's in the most convoluted way possible. Like she's going up to blackjack tables or whatever it is, and getting messages on cards to then go to the balloon game, and then at the balloon game she wins this and wins a big cuddly toy to the annoyance of this little annoying kid next to her. And the cuddly toy is the thing that ultimately has these diamonds in it. Then, oh yeah, this is the bit I did not really like. Then she goes to this, like, I guess it's like an act that they have there, where like a gorilla woman, and it's just like, oh no.
It's like a kid's show, right? Of like, come and see the marvelous woman who turns into a gorilla, and then it's just a load of like
racism.
White kids looking at a black woman in a cage who then transforms into a gorilla.
So
the less said, the better.
Yes. So
because it's terrible.
It is terrible. That was like, I was like, oof, that I did not remember that at all in this film, and I'm kind of pleased I didn't. So anyway, long story short, because of this little act, Tiffany escapes through the back exit where they had not planned for her to be, so they lose her, even though...
Yeah, so because she does get the diamonds.
Yeah.
She does legitimately get given the diamonds, but the plan is to follow her to where she's going because they don't expect her to actually go and meet up with Bond. But Bond, while this is happening, says, I'm going to go and get a car, go to the meetup point to see if she shows up. But Felix is like, that's not going to happen. So the whole point was that they were going to tell her to, keep an eye on the diamonds. But that doesn't happen because racism, sadly, got underway and she escapes.
Yeah. So off she goes. And as you say, Bond is not surprised that she ran off and double-crossed him. But it all kind of works out in the end, though, because, well, I don't really know how Bond knows where she is.
No idea.
In the next scene, but he eventually
no idea.
He eventually just goes to her house, where she's kind of sunbathing. Although, then how does she not notice a dead body in the pool?
That's what breaks this, right? I don't know what location that's meant to be, but there's a dead woman in the pool. And initially it didn't click to me, but I had to read this afterwards, admittedly, that, there's Tiffany's by the pool, sunbathing, Bond shows up, it's like, there's a dead woman there, and she's like, goodness. And it turns out the dead woman is Plenty O'Toole. And then Bond is like, oh, that was supposed to be you. People are all being killed here. But I just don't get it. I'm assuming that Mr. Whit and Mr. Kidd killed her, and as part of their weirdness and their weird game, put her in Tiffany's pool just to mess with her.
So, I said I wasn't going to talk about any more deleted scenes, but this is the one I actually did want to talk about, because this one, it's bizarre that they cut this scene out, because it's led to this exact confusion. It is so, I wouldn't say it's intrinsic to the plot, but it is, because they cut out a scene where, whilst Bond and Tiffany are in the casino bedroom, schmoozing it up together, Plenty, who has now come out of the pool she was chucked into, comes back up to the room, sneaks in, spots Bond and Tiffany together, and is angry, obviously, and then looks in Tiffany's bag for her business card where her address is. And so the implication is that she then goes to see Tiffany, and whilst there, Wint and Kidd mistake her for Tiffany and kill her instead.
Oh, okay. I mean, that still does. That makes more sense, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because we know Mr. Kidd and Mr. Whit already saw what Tiffany looks like.
That's true.
On the plane.
That is true. But it does explain why she was there.
Yeah, that makes more sense. So, of how she got there, at least.
So maybe they didn't know that was Tiffany, but they still wanted to kill her as a sign, But then, what? You can tell how much I was just sort of watching the film and just letting it go past me, because as I'm explaining some of the stuff, I'm trying to work it out as I'm saying it. Why did she not see the dead body in her own pool while she's sunbathing next to it?
This comes back to she's an idiot, right?
Yeah.
Like they set that up for the rest of the film. She's just a complete idiot. And I guess this is... we already know this a little bit. We're starting to get those hints, and this is, I guess, one of them. But yeah, you're right. I mean, she is wearing sunglasses.
Oh, that must be it. So Bond comes there and does point out that there is a dead body, that should have been you, and that sort of scares her back into now working alongside Bond and the CIA and off of the actual diamond smuggling trail. So, I mean, that's the actual reason for the scene, but it's very, very poorly done.
So, yeah, it all comes out in the wash that Bond is there like, I need to know your connection to all of this and who this is, which I can't remember if she actually says or not. It's all very confusing. But it's, again, she knows that he's not Peter Franks. So that's the end of the Peter Franks kind of saga. He was pretending to be him for quite a while, but that's now formally dropped, and now it's about, because Tiffany is so like saving her own skin, she doesn't really have loyalties in this film. She then kind of just switches over to help Bond out instead. So eventually this cuts to, because she does have the diamonds, she is sending the diamonds away at an airport. So we cut to an airport, and we want to Bond watching the luggage and the dog with the diamonds inside get taken away. The luggage go into a van, and we have them in a red car following that van, because I guess she's already done the drop off, and now it's about, let's actually just see where it goes. And then I have to try and remember how this plays out, because I think at this point is where we first hear about Willard White. Willard White?
Willard White.
Willard White, sorry. Basically, it's someone who runs the White House, which was very confusing to me because the whole point is that it's the White House, White, which is the same as this guy's last name, not the actual White House. But I didn't pick up on that until later in the film, and it was super confusing to be like, oh yeah, the White House, he never leaves. I'm like, all right, is he president? What's because they say he's like president of the company as well. I'm like, what is? I really got completely lost when they explained this here.
That would be something if it, actually getting the president of America involved in a Bond film like that.
Yeah, because it's a pretty important detail about this White guy, Mr. White. But they just kind of casually mention it, and I think it's meant to be part of her contacts and her letting it down and Saxby and stuff like that because she was involved with them. But they're following this van, and the van pulls up to a petrol station, and we get... I mean, you must have loved this scene, right? Because it is nothing but absolutely dreadful acting the whole time.
Where she's blocking the car and moaning to the guy. Yeah. She's Oh, not as much because it wasn't Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd, and she is a bit more annoying, but it's still it's cheese, so it's fine. So they're following. I think the driver switches at some point, and it's like a different person now, and they're in a petrol station about to leave. So Tiffany drives in front to block them off, giving Bond a chance to sneak into the back of this van, and she's just there stalling and moaning at the attendant and go get some gas and being a bit of a Karen, right? So I didn't mind it, but you're right, it is terrible acting. I don't think the lady who played Tiffany Case was good at all, really.
Oh, I don't think I didn't dislike this scene, by the way, because it was so deliberately awful, where it's not just her acting, which is overall quite bad. It's like, because it's supposed to be her causing a commotion at this petrol station, we have like different characters. We have like two people behind her, then the gas attendant who's meant to be pumping gas, which is always weird to see in American films, someone who pumps gas. I'm like, okay, that's lazy. But like everyone's just talking in that same dreadful acting voice that you always get when someone's a bad actor. Like, hey, I'm trying to get gas here. Oh, move it or lose it, Buster. Okay, lady, you win. I'll get you your gas. It's just like, forget it, Curly. You had your chance and you blew it. It's like, oh, lady, what are you doing? Like,
I don't want no trouble.
Talks in the same, like that same voice.
Yeah, that is true. Maybe that's just how Las Vegas was in 1971.
It's a different time.
I mean, you weren't there. You don't know.
It's true.
I was. I remember it fondly.
Yeah, you were that kid moaning about the toy earlier.
I really wanted that bear with the diamonds in.
It's 25 wins for the dog. Everyone knows that.
Sorry, was it a dog? It was a dog.
Yeah. But yeah, again, I liked it because it's dumb, and this word for me because it's like, yeah, surely this isn't meant to be taken seriously. This is supposed to be a comedic, silly scene of her being silly and everyone else reacting to it. So this one did make me laugh a bit because everyone's acting is so one note and terrible that it's like, yeah, okay. I can get into this. This did make me laugh.
Good. Yes, that's what I like to hear.
We're not doing an Emperor Palpatine sort of thing. No.
Let the camp flow through you.
Somehow the camp returned.
So in the back of the van, Bond is there watching where he's being driven to, and it ends up being... I wrote this down. It was called like W Tektronics. So it's a sort of offshoot of the White Enterprise, I guess. And it just looks like some sort of science laboratory, factory, something like that. But the person goes in and gets a lift down to like some sort of basement parking and goes into some laboratory with a key card. So Bond is there trying to work out how to get in, and this is where you get some classic. This is like, so it's proper. I can't think of the right word for it, but just pure. I really can't think of the right word for it. Impersonation, and it's just it doesn't really work in this sense, but it also does because it is so bad. But Bond is just waiting, I guess, coming up with a plan, and as he's doing that, another security science looking man with the white lab coat comes along and is just about to buzz himself in with the card. And that's where Bond sort of takes his chance to step in and be like, "Oh, hi, are you new here?" sort of thing. And that cliche of trying to blend in is like, "Oh, yeah, I'm from Section G. Who are you?" And "Oh, I've just started," and this sort of stuff. And it's like it's so, it's so. You just see this everywhere, right? I guess maybe in 1971 it wasn't as much so, but I kind of liked it. I kind of liked it. So yeah, Bond fakes being a worker at this secret lab and goes in with this other guy, and they have this very pleasant conversation to each other about, "Oh, where do you work? Or how's work going? Oh, just doing some radiation scanning. And hey, where's your radiation thing? Oh, I lost it. Oh, here's one. I bring a spare." It's also very pleasant between the two of them. I don't know. I really liked it.
I mean, it's the best chemistry between two characters in the whole film.
It really is.
Like, it just generally just seems like two people at work having a chat.
I can, yeah, that's right. Maybe that's why I liked it so much, is because it's so relatable. This is what you have. These sort of little chats is what you have going down the corridor of an office or something like that.
Yeah, and it's Sean also just having fun with that line, right? Him faking being someone and just having that chat with them. It's another one of those. We get a lot of these. I didn't really think about it while watching the film, but yeah, doing this podcast, you get a lot of these, and they're actually all quite fun and great.
Yeah.
And this goes to Bond. Yeah, he gets in, and the guy basically tells him all the information about himself. Like, I do this is what I do. And so Bond's like, okay, I can use that. He goes and put on a lab coat. By the way, actually, I should say Bond is in like a full grey suit, which is a great suit, but it's so obviously not someone who should be in a science lab.
No, it would have been good if he maybe closed the lab coat at least so you can't see the suit. Would have been a bit better.
He's so obviously in this suit. But then, yeah, when he's talking to the guy anyway, he's just in the suit. And then the guy helps him out, and then he gets a little lab coat. And using that, he puts on the coat and enters the main part of the lab. Where is it Baxby that's in there? Or is it a different character?
He's I didn't write down his name. He's the professor basically working on what turns out to be the evil plan. But okay. I think, yeah, just some generic professor guy.
Yeah, I got these two confused at some point, I'll be honest. Because these are two separate characters, but I just see them as old man who's helping out Blofeld, who like stands and talks to him sometimes.
Yeah, like Blofeld's right-hand man sort of deal. Yeah.
So this is a professor, and Bond pretends to be the man from before, saying, "I'm just checking the shields and stuff." And this guy gets really annoyed, like
really quickly.
Yeah, he's just like, "Get out, go away." And then it is great seeing Sean Connery just be like, "I'll just have a quick look around, don't mind me." He's like, "No, just leave."
Starts to fiddle with things, and it's just...
yeah, he just picks stuff up like a kid, and the guy just says like, "Can you please leave, you irritating man?" Which he doesn't then leave. He just won't go away. So good.
Yeah. I'm not. My opinion is not so crazy, Tom. It's not.
Well, I think there's stuff that works that I enjoy, but like, I mean, we are now in the part of the film where Mr. Kidd and Mr. Whit are gone, basically. If you had noticed, like, we had to concentrate a lot, but I don't think they come back at all until... No, they do come back, sorry. There is another scene.
But you're right, though. It is mainly gone now for them.
Yeah, so now it's just Bond being cocky city Bond, and I can get behind that. But a very small detail here, which is very easy to miss, is that Bond just sees a tape, and they zoom in on the tape, and then he puts down the tape. Doesn't really mean anything in this moment, but I think that's the main thing that's supposed to have happened here, that Bond sees that, oh, there's this laser that they're making, and they brought the diamonds here, and there's a tape.
Yeah,
so he leaves.
Which the guy seems very protective of, like he snatches it back. So there's clearly something going on with this tape, which is like marches, the greatest marches or something like that. But yeah, the point is just to think like, okay, keep an eye on that.
Yeah, and this leaves with, finally, James Bond leaves after all the insisting and shouting. And then very shortly after he leaves, the man from before comes in and saying, "I'm so-and-so from Sector G, and I'm here to check the radiation shields." And yeah, it's meant to be a joke. And again, this scene is quite funny, and it's nice to see that kind of play out, the poor guy. As you kind of were getting at, this is a cliche. like a
Yeah.
big cliche we've seen tons of times before. But it's an older film, so it's fine. It's before the cliche was a proper cliche. But yeah, if you don't like this cliche from other films, this is just that to a T playing out.
Yeah, it's pure farce, but if you're a fan of that, then you're gonna like it. I did like the next bit as well. So yeah, they realize that, hey, well, who's that first guy then? So sound the alarm. And you think you'd get more of maybe Bond trying to escape or trying to do something. I suppose we do get him escaping later on, but it just immediately cuts to basically him being found straight away. I just found it absurd. So it just, yeah, he ends up being behind some rocks as part of a moon landing set. I guess the implication is that they faked the moon landing or something. I don't really know what that is about, or they're just
I
doing...
think so, but you just don't get enough time to think about it or absorb it, right? Like,
No.
if this was this is a Spectre base basically, but it doesn't feel like that at all. But I think the implication is, oh yeah, Blofeld, by the way, faked the moon landing. Don't think about it. Don't worry about that. But you don't get enough of an impression of Spectre or anything to make that work. So it just comes across as really weird because Bond is just hiding behind a moon rock with a load of astronauts nearby.
Yeah, I suppose it's similar to in the previous films where they'd say that, the train robbery recently happened, or this painting was missing, and it's okay, that was actually Spectre, or it's actually Blofeld. That was this, but as you say, it's just it's just weird because then you get the astronauts acting in slow motion later on. But Bond is there hiding behind the moon rock, and then just immediately the guards go, "There he is behind the rock."
That old man.
There he is. It's just
I recognize the hump.
Oh, the way that they say it so quick and so clearly. There he is behind the rock. It's really made me laugh. And then we get, I think, probably the best chase scene of the entire franchise, I think, coming up after this. Wouldn't you agree?
I'm gonna say something crazy here.
Okay, go on then.
Go out there, out of this world, as you will, like the moon, and say I didn't enjoy the scene.
You didn't enjoy it?
No.
Oh, that's a shame.
To try and sum it up quite quick, basically Bond finds a moon buggy as part of this set and uses that as the getaway from this area. And then we get this big chase scene where Bond is just very slowly driving this moon buggy and a load of cars are chasing him, but they all just like crash for no reason.
Very clumsy.
Like every time, they all just crash themselves. And I did get the sense that this was supposed to be a comedic scene, just due to the way it's edited, where it edits to, well, it cuts between this like Bond driving a moon buggy, like zzz, like very low, that sort of sound, and then it goes from that to jump cut to grrr, like these cars just going mental, flipping for no reason, and then cut back to zzz, like totally. It's supposed to be comedic. It just didn't make me laugh, I guess. And I think, thinking about this afterwards, as I think if this was Roger Moore, I probably would have been more into it.
Oh, interesting.
But I don't think Sean Connery, I just don't think it works with him. I don't think having his head popping out of the moon buggy and stuff, like for all the other stuff that he's done in the other films, it's just not his style of Bond. And it just kind of means I don't really buy it. And I can't just kind of enjoy it for the schlock that it is, because Sean Connery was never that until this film. But Roger Moore, it's a different type of Bond. It's a different style. So I think if this was Roger Moore, I probably would have enjoyed it. I'm not in that frame of mind when it comes to Sean Connery doing one of these very like silly chase scene, because this is the first silly chase scene we get in the entire franchise. And I think they should have saved it for Roger Moore, where we do get some of these scenes. And I would say I do enjoy those ones a bit more with Roger Moore at the helm.
Yeah. Yeah, as you said, this is that weird transitional period where it's going into this camp Bond tone that's going to last for a while, but it's still Sean. There's this crossover period, and I suppose with that, some things aren't going to work particularly well. I think for me, I don't mind it. I quite enjoyed it. I think because of the reasons you said about just the cut in sound effects and just the moon buggy's little wobbling arms, like little grabby arms. I just found that on a very simple level just funny. But I think this film probably, because Sean is, I feel like this just isn't the same Bond as we saw in Goldfinger and Thunderball, and I think because of that, I can separate this into that first era of Sean Connery, and then this is just he's back for the paycheck and a bit of fun, and therefore I can let this work in my mind. But I can see how that would not work for others.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, and we said it earlier. This is the first film of a new era, so I know you really enjoy that era. I don't really enjoy that era as much, although I might turn around on that. But this makes this whole film very awkward. It's just that awkward transitional one, and I think it's way more awkward and out of place than on a Majesty Secret Service, really. But yeah, again, it's that middle film, and I think the more they kind of commit and figure out how to do this stuff more in the later films with Roger Moore, they improve on it. They improve upon the stuff that was in this film. But with this film, just kind of, it's just so messy. I just don't think they knew what they wanted to get out of this film. They just had a general direction with Goldfinger as the template, and they pushed it in this direction, and it just is super inconsistent. And for me, it means that I can't just enjoy it overall as a campy film, because I don't think it really knew what it wanted to be. And that to me is why I think ultimately I can't get sucked into it, because it just isn't consistent. There is a lot of campiness across the film, so you could argue there is some consistency there. It's just, I just couldn't get into this.
Yeah, I suppose inconsistency from trying to get those Goldfinger elements. I do wonder, I'd be interested to, maybe there's something online or maybe with the writer of the script about why they took this path of the silly, campy cheesiness when they quite clearly were trying to take elements from Goldfinger. Why did they not go all in with that Goldfinger thing and keep it relatively, compared to this, serious? I wonder why they chose to add in a moon buggy chase and stuff. Like, what was the reason? What was the push for that?
I really don't know. I think, but when I was thinking about this before this episode, it's kind of like I was quite mad. So I was like, Guy Hamilton didn't know what he had with Goldfinger, because a lot of these elements are there, and I think his vision for the franchise, because there is also a lot of comedy in that film as well. But I think his vision for the franchise is very different. But I think with Goldfinger only being the third film in the franchise, he was a lot more restrained by the fact that it was a sequel to From Russia with Love.
Yeah.
Where by the time we got to this one, we had different directors, different Bonds, and everything had changed. I think it allowed him to just really go all in with this vision. And he probably would have gone more all in with Goldfinger if it was, if you had swapped the films. Like, if they adapted Diamonds Are Forever 3rd and Goldfinger 7th, I think we would have got the same tone for both of them in terms of, like, Diamonds Are Forever would have felt tone-wise more in line with Goldfinger, and this one still would have been, Goldfinger would have been a very campy version of it anyway. And I think I point my finger mostly at him, because I did, if Peter Hunt did return, this wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have got anything like this.
No, I mean, he had a clear vision for what was going to do next, I suppose. So, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it was kind of Goldfinger was a happy accident in a way, to an extent. He didn't really know what made it so good until he had like full control, and then like that was a bit of the downfall. Was having too much
maybe
freedom.
This is crossing the line, but I think it might be a little George Lucas syndrome.
Oh.
Where he had restraints early on, and those restraints actually meant that the elements that would have been bad were pulled in, and it made it for a more balanced, enjoyable film. But then once he got given the free reign, that's when things started to get a bit crazy and wacky and harder to get into.
I mean, you make a good argument, because they would have said to him, listen, we need a good film after George Lazenby. Here's a bucket load of money. Go and do what you did before. And so he probably thought, great, I could do what I want.
Yeah. We've gone a little bit off topic here, but again, that's how I think this played out. And especially because Guy Hamilton then gets the keys for the next 2 films, I think I want to say, which kind of continue on this type of tone. Like, he doesn't bring it back, I don't think. I guess we'll see next time, but as far as I remember, he doesn't bring that tone back. This tone established in this film is carried on to the next 2 films, and it's only The Spy Who Loved Me, which has a completely different director, is where that stuff kind of gets pulled in a little bit. So I think this is purely Guy Hamilton's vision for the franchise, and that was more comedy, more jokes, more silliness, more camp tone, and he is the one that kind of really injected it with this film and then the next two as well.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so back to the film then. I suppose just imagine all that time we could have been talking about the buggy chase. So count yourself lucky.
What's there to talk about? Right? Like it's not that much there.
Oh, every shot could be analysed frame by frame. I mean, when the little tricycle bikes come out and the little flags on, oh man, great.
I look forward to the bonus episode of the podcast where Joe...
Just me.
Yeah, episode 7.5.
No, that would be about Mr. Wint and Mr. Kid, so it's fine. Bond escapes eventually. That's all that really needs to be said. And meets up with Tiffany, who was there to grab him. And they drive back to Vegas. But then we get immediately another chase scene straight after this, kind of back-to-back sort of thing, because some of the security guards or security henchmen who were chasing him spot the car driving away, so they kind of tell the police in Vegas to keep an eye out for that car and arrest him when they see him. So when they do eventually drive into Vegas, into the proper strip area, they get caught. And then there's another car chase, but this time with the police who are just as incompetent and crash-worthy. But this time they're just in a different setting. However, I will say, like, the sides are for a good reason. Like, just really clumsy stuff going on, just silly. But I think this is probably one of the reasons why I like this film more than I should do, is I am just a big fan of, like, the Vegas look. And I think, especially in this scene, where you are right in the middle of it and right in the thick of the strip, and you see all the shots racing around the casinos and all of the lights and the neon and the signs and the crowds and everything. I just really love the visuals of this. It's not a very interesting car chase. I hope that's fair. There's a little bit in a car park where Bond does some tricks to get them to crash into each other and everything. But for me, just the visuals alone kind of just sell this to me, I would say.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it is that classic Bond thing of let's really show off this location and really sell Bond as being in this location, well, causing havoc, to be honest.
Yeah.
But for me, I just don't care about Vegas. Like, it's kind of how when you said before trashy, and I said go on, that is kind of my feeling. I just think Vegas looks so greasy and depressing. I just don't find anything kind of attractive about it. It's not somewhere I would ever go to. I've been to America a few times and I really enjoyed my time there, but there is sometimes this kind of lifeless, dead elements to some of these places where, like, Vegas is just a load of concrete with a load of Christmas lights on it in the middle of a desert. And to me, that's just depressing. So, sorry, people who live in Vegas and people who love Vegas. You know, it's a very unique place. So I totally understand somebody being like, oh, I really want to go there and check it out and have this really unique, different experience. But for me, I don't see all the glitz and the glamour of Vegas and think, oh, that looks really cool and it stands out to me. To me, I'm just like, this just looks grim. It's just not somewhere I would want to go. And it just all feels so artificial to me that I just don't like it. And that is probably a big part of why I don't like this film as well. Not something I really considered before rewatching it. Like, you could take all the other elements, but ultimately with Bond films like this, like, if you were watching on a Majesty Secret Service saying, I hate snow, I hate mountains, and it was like, well, okay, don't watch this, maybe. But yeah, you would be like, this is awful, I hate this. And I'm not quite like, I don't hate Vegas or something, I'm just not really interested in it. And a lot of the stuff is showing off Vegas, and that's great that they do that. I'm just not into Vegas and I'm not into seeing Bond in Vegas. So for me, all this stuff kind of falls flat because it's not something I'm interested in.
And there you go. I suppose that is, you can talk about parts of Bond films, going into details about Bond girls, gadgets, car chases, villains, henchmen. You can go into everything like that, but sometimes it comes down to a personal preference of things, and you might like one style of something and not as much the other, and then that's the thing that is going to be a deciding factor in whether you like the film and whether it's one that you would comfortably go back and rewatch. And there you go, that's the example of it in action.
Well, I think not a one-to-one example of it, but it's the Thunderball thing, right? Too much water, lots of water everywhere. It's kind of the same thing. If you're not into water, it's just like, I'm not really into this. And to me, it's kind of a similar thing, not one-to-one, but it's a similar thing with Vegas. I'm not really into these casinos and lights and stuff like that. So it just doesn't do anything for me. But again, I think a lot of people do experience that with Thunderball, where it's like, there's just too much of this. And I'm just not really that into seeing people in scuba gear for a quarter of a film.
Yep. Like me.
Like you, yeah, like most people, as far as I'm aware. It's still your second favourite, though, so we'll have to figure that one out.
That's true. Well, let's see where we put this one, and then that might answer it a little bit.
Yeah. So this eventually, like you say, like something I don't really like this scene that much either, because again, as you say, it shows off the setting, but I'm not too fussed about it. But this is also another one where all the cars chasing Bond are dumb. And I'm not that into these type of chases. I want there to be some sort of threat. And they did a good job in the other films of there being a threat. But for the sake of the comedy, these cops are just like no threat at all. Like we see the sheriff on the phone being like, yeah, I'm sure Larry got him. Just to show Bond drive past. He's like, oh goodness, get my hat. I've got to go after him. Like it's another one where it's played for laughs and comedy, but it just didn't really make me laugh. And a little bit of that is fine. It's just we have two of these back to back.
Yeah,
and
that's
both
strange.
Of these scenes. Yeah, I don't know why they did that. Like the moon buggy was clearly a comedy scene. So then they take what could have been a really intense, cool chase, but they kind of remove some of the venom of it by making this kind of silly sheriff character talking about Larry.
And it's not even J.W. Pepper.
Yeah, it's the prelude to Pepper.
Yeah, like you need someone like that to really sell if you're going to do this sort of thing. You need someone as over the top as J.W. Pepper. I mean, it does have this scene that I suppose we should mention, the kind of like the end stunt of this scene, which is often talked about because it's wrong continuity wise, is that Bond is chased down a dead end of an alleyway and uses a sort of ramp on the side to go on two wheels and get through this really tight space at the end of the alleyway. And I mean, it's a cool stunt. Not the coolest in the series, but someone actually did that, so that's kind of neat. But then everyone always talks about how the car goes in on one set of wheels and then comes out on the other. And so to counteract that in the editing, or I guess like at some point they realized during production that that's not going to work. So then they have this really strange insert shot to try and sell it that they rotate somehow in the middle of this very thin alleyway. It's one of those things where it's like, it really, people discuss it more than it needs to. Like, yeah, it's kind of stupid if you think about it, but it's a tiny part of this whole scene. It's fine.
I really like the stunt though.
Yeah.
I know you're saying there's better ones, and you're right. Even in the next few films, from what I remember, there's some cooler stuff. But yeah, it's a practical effect or a practical stunt where someone just got a car up on two wheels and then drove it through a thin alley. That's awesome. I love that. And I think it's weird that they started caring about editing continuity now. Like, why this film? We literally had a film in You Only Live Twice where the guy who's now playing Blofeld in this film said, stirred not shaken, and he's like, yeah, perfect. It's like why are we now caring about that stuff? Just let it be something that's a little bit off and a little bit doesn't make sense, because I think the fact they try to fix it makes it even worse than if they just left it if the wheels were different. It's
the Barbra Streisand effect in action there. But you're right though. I think in terms of like, oh, that's actually a real person doing that. There's something that is like a staple of Bond. And throughout the series, you get these cool stunts. It's like, wow, that actually happened. We've had it. Well, for me, it was not quite at the same level, but in the last film with the skiing and skiing on the one ski blade, I thought that was really cool. And in a couple of films' time, we get the really cool car stunt twisting in the air. So it's all this sort of stuff where it's like, I mean, well, they aren't really comparable, but for this one, it's good. I mean, he does a little stunt. There's a little bit of an issue. They try and fix it. Still looks a bit weird. I did also think it was a bit weird that, so clearly they're filming this actually in Vegas and to some extent having the streets closed off and everything, but clearly they could not stop crowds, because in all of this chase scene, there's just crowds everywhere just watching, and it's like, kind of takes you out a little bit. If you notice it, it takes you out, but it's so quick. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, I didn't notice it. I guess crowds in Vegas make sense.
But like
and also
crowds
people
like
just
so
watching
clearly.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Vegas is meant to be one big show, right? So people kind of checking stuff out. Yeah, I didn't notice it, but it kind of makes sense for Vegas anyway.
Yeah.
So then Bond and Tiffany has now gotten away. They've gotten out of there. So we cut to them in bed with the fish nearby.
Yeah. Fish tank bed.
Fish tank bed. Yeah, I mean, I really like aquariums and fishes, but this is all a little bit strange.
A little bit Troy McClory, maybe.
Yeah. Oh no. This goes in a dark direction.
Yes.
So they're now in bed talking, and I don't know what she says, but in my notes I wrote, God, she's bad. Like, I think this is when we really get Tiffany being the ditz, the dumb person, and this is when it all kind of comes out and it's now all on the table, because she's all about like, I'm with the good guys now, right? Like, nothing's going to happen to me. And Bond is saying about, oh, I've got a friend called Felix who can fix anything, and then Bond's just like, oh, how about getting her like 20 years to life, I guess is what you'll get. And she's like, oh no, James, you're just joking, right? And yeah, she's now full tiff. She's gone full tiff by this point.
Never go full tiff.
You never want to go full tiff.
Yeah, by this point, the character is she's just there on the screen for me. I really lost all interest by this point. To be honest, I think I lost interest quite early on with this character, but now it's just, yeah, enough.
So then this cuts to Felix entering the room, I think later on, because Bond's in his full gear, I want to say. And Tiffany's just trying to be sexy on the bed. I think, again, trying to like, don't send me to prison, tee-hee. I don't know. But I think Bond it all happens quite quick and it's not clear. And I think Bond is just trying to explain like, yeah, this Mr. White guy has this lab and that's where the diamonds are, so Mr. White's a bad time. But Felix is like, I'm going to need a little bit more before believing that he would be a diamond thief. I don't but you need more evidence of this. Which then,
yeah, there's something along the lines of Willard White. So the character of Willard White in this film is based off of someone called Howard Hughes, who was a magnate and had loads of money and owned loads of casinos and hotels in Vegas, and was actually also, he was a recluse in real life, and he stayed in like the top penthouse of one of the hotels for years and years, and no one saw him. And so that's where all these attributes of Willard White comes into play, basically just playing the same character. And it's weird because I was reading that Howard Hughes actually helped out with the filming of this, like closing the streets and stuff and letting them use the casinos because he was a friend of Cubby Broccoli's. They just based the character on him. And that also, a little bit of a tangent, but that's why it's the same person that Mr. Burns is meant to be.
Yeah,
when he has the
Bruce
casino. I said hop in. So, yeah, and the idea is like no one's seen Willard White in ages, so how can he be part of this diamond smuggling? And that's why Bond is then going to go up and investigate. And I think this scene coming up is actually quite good. I don't know what you thought, but the scene of Bond going out the window and scaling up to the penthouse suite of this hotel, it's very, very simple. You know, it gets on top of this lift on the side of the building and hangs on when it goes back down, kind of shuffles over, shimmies over, uses a little, don't know what those guns are called, but guns that like pierce into the rock and like for mountaineering and stuff.
Grapple gun, is it?
Yeah, like a grapple gun thing.
Grapple gun, yeah, that's the one.
Shoots those in and uses that to kind of swing over and shimmy himself up on the rope. And I've got to say, like, it's so clear when you're watching. I mean, besides the fact it is a movie and not real, but I mean, it's so clear that he's not where he is, and it's just a stage and some matte paintings or whatever it is that they used. But despite that, even though you know that, and it looks so obvious on screen, when they do the whole swinging over thing, I was just sort of like, ooh, I think there's still like a little feeling like, oh, that's scary. Like he's actually swinging over at the top of a casino hotel place. And it was just really basic stuff, but I think done quite well.
Yeah, it's a really good concept, right? Just Bond kind of swinging and climbing the top of a really high hotel. Well, not a hotel, I guess. It's the White House,
yeah,
I believe. But yeah, because we initially get a scene of him climbing on top of the lift, and then he just stands on the lift, And then we get a camera shot kind of zooming out to kind of show Bond cockily kind of just standing there waiting on the lift.
Yeah, and that's real.
Yeah, it's real. Like you can tell it's real. So yeah, they don't really do too much to really sell the height. Like you don't get any shots of Bond kind of looking down or stuff. Like I feel like sometimes with these films, yeah, they would put in more effort with the height. But yeah, I think the slower pace of this, where he is just trying to practically climb, helps it a lot. And this is where I said before how Bond or Sean Connery being a bit older, you kind of forget about it. And at this point is when I could fully say that was the case. Like, I'm not thinking, oh, Sean looks a bit old. It's like, no, it's Bond doing his thing, climbing up here and swinging across to try and get to the top. And I think it does kind of prove that, yeah, Sean Connery could still do a good job as Bond and sell it with these type of scenes. It's just they needed to be smarter about them. Unlike the very opening scene where we just have a graying James Bond choking a woman. When we get scenes like this, he does sell it as James Bond, and he does still kind of prove that he's not completely kind of done, and he can do these sort of scenes, and it works.
Yeah, exactly the same as in Never Say Never Again. Completely sells it.
Well, I don't remember that film, Joe.
That may not be the truth.
Oh no.
I may have been lying.
Yeah, so after all that, he gets to the top of the roof and climbs into this hatch, and he lands in this wooden chair, which I believe is supposed to be Mr. White's chair, and we see that there's all this sort of stuff surrounding Bond now in this chair. There's like, well, the first thing he sees is like toilet paper.
Yeah, it's his commode.
Yeah, it's his seat, but it's also a toilet, and then he's got a phone and all these cameras into the casino and things like that. And I think it should be mentioned because we forgot to mention it. Earlier in the film, we saw a shot of this room where Baxby was calling Mr. White, and we saw someone who looked a little bit like Blofeld, and I don't think it's confirmed to be Blofeld, but he's talking very southern, like Mr. White.
Yes.
But that actually happened ages ago. We just forgot to mention it because it happens very quickly. So we have seen this before a little bit. But while Bond is on the toilet, we get Mr. White with this big, exaggerated southern accent saying, get off the toilet and come on in, come sit down. And the doors open and Bond leaves, and there's this massive big room, and the chair swivels.
Oh, there we are. There it is.
And it's Blofeld.
Finally some good chair swiveling.
So I guess this is where it came from, because we said before there was no swivel and you only live twice. This is the only swivel we've seen.
It was an awkward lean.
Yeah,
awkward lean past the man. Yeah, here it is. It's a good swivel as well.
Oh yeah, confident swivel.
You have to be. You have to be. But I mean, this whole scene that comes up, I think, we've seen Blofeld at the very beginning of the film, the new Blofeld, but very, very quickly. Like we didn't really get a good taste of him. So now, from this point on, you're actually getting proper Charles Gray's interpretation of Blofeld, and as I said before, I really do like his Blofeld. It's very different, and it is very camp, and it's not on the same level as the mysterious figure stroking the cat in the first few films, and it's definitely not like Donald Pleasance in the sort of, as you would have said, like kind of dweeby looking man. It doesn't seem very imposing. I think this one is quite imposing in a weird way, but also I could relate this one much more to the one I read in the book, which is that it's like this man that just always thinks he's the smartest person in the room and constantly wanting to mock. And I think this is actually a very good way of showing that.
Well, yeah, because it's most like the last one, but it's very different. Where I would say both the Blofeld on a Majesty Secret Service and this one ooze confidence. But in the last film, it was more of a quieter, confident, and being more casual and kind of relaxed, where he was actually quite relaxed in these scenes, smoking and crossing his legs and just kind of being very cool and but confident, but again, not very, quite low energy.
Suave,
yeah. But this one is very confident, but in the other way, where he stands up, is big. He's like, yes, like he's very, very sure of himself, but very like just a much bigger personality and presence. So yeah, I think both interpretation match Blofeld very well. But this is the one where, yeah, again, he's confident. Like, he's very sure of himself, and he's very, like, it's that arrogance that we see with all these Bond villains, especially Blofeld, and it's that kind of turned up to a T. And yeah, again, I do like him. I do think it is a shame we're seeing Blofeld recast again. I don't think it's the wrong decision, but it's not quite as bad as Felix, but it is really disappointing to have Blofeld like this. But this all goes back to what I said before, where you kind of have to try and enjoy this film and the last film as its own individual thing. And as its own individual interpretation of Blofeld is a ton of fun. But as someone connecting it to the rest, where it's now the third version, and he was in the other film as well, like, yeah, it's not great. And it did make me a little bit not as invested in this as I could have been, but still, it's a good version, and he's fun when he's on screen.
Yeah. There's no more talk about Tracy or anything like that. That's gone now. So, we see Blofeld swivel around, and I can't remember whether he explains about the phone stuff first, or whether the other Blofeld comes down. What order that is?
I don't know. I think the double comes down first.
Okay, yeah, and then suddenly another Blofeld comes down. So there were more Blofelds out, but which one is the real one? I don't know. And it is also explained how Blofeld is doing this and impersonating as Willard White, and he's got some sort of little phone vocal gadget thing, which just changes his voice, simple as that, and lets him speak like that. So that's how he's become head of this whole organization and kidnapped the real Willard White. But yeah, there's a second Blofeld that comes down, and one thing I really liked, I had to go back and rewatch this. So at one point there's a scene where, so one of the Blofelds is sitting at the chair on the desk, and the other one walks down the stairs and walks kind of in front of the desk and onto the sofa. And yeah, there's one scene where you're seeing both of them, and I was like, oh wow, that's quite good. Like, that's been really well done. If it's like a layering effect there and combining two shots, I could not tell that was like a really bad cutout of one shot in front of the other. And then I paused it and went back, and it's, oh no, wait, the Blofeld in the back was just a dummy.
Oh really?
And if you look closely, like, his mouth isn't moving or anything when he's supposed to be talking, and it's really stiff. But hey, I mean, it fooled me the first time, so couldn't have been that bad.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it, but yeah, you're right. It is a good effect, but yeah, you don't, as long as you don't, I guess, pause it. But yeah, I didn't notice quality. Anything like that.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah, and then we get this, again, it's a little bit more comedic, where it's the two Blofelds explaining stuff to Bond, because it's not supposed to be a direct clone. It's supposed to be what we saw before, where Blofeld was just creating copies of himself by getting volunteers and making them all change their voice using this voice technology, voice changing tech, and also just have him look like them. And we get this banter. And to be honest, I didn't really like this too much. Like, it was a little bit too far for me to have Sean Connery talk, or James Bond talking to like two Blofelds. Like, I like overall, again, I like Charles Gray and his version of Blofeld, but having this be the way he's introduced back in the film, I kind of glad what happens to one of them in this scene, because that would have just done my absolute head in if the rest of the film was just if they both escaped. That would have been awful.
Don't shoot him. I'm the real, or no, do shoot him. He's the real Blofeld. No, he's the real Blofeld.
I'm seeing double here. 4 Blofelds.
See, we could write a better film easily. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. One of them does sadly not stick around for too long. Bond, oh so suavely, kicks a cat into one of the Blofelds, and as a distraction, and then shoots him with the same grappling gun that he was using to climb up, which is quite cool that he uses that. But yeah, very, very kind of over the top death and a jump back. And yeah, the cat runs off, and it turns out it was not the real Blofeld. Oh. And I think the way they worked that out is because I think he even says like, Blofeld says, right idea, and Bond says, wrong pussy, because the other cat comes in and goes up to what is the real Blofeld, and I guess that's how you'd know, because the cat can tell the difference. I guess.
They each had a cat, but the first cat goes over to the one on the sofa, which he kills. But then the other cat has a diamond collar. So you know, that's got to be the real one because the real one's going to get the diamonds.
Yeah.
And then, very oddly, Blofeld's like, okay, I'm done with you. Goodbye. And then he's like, you can go. Thank you very much. And then Bond's like, I guess I'll just take this lift. Like, yeah, go in. It's all fine. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry. No, there's nothing wrong with the lift.
Yeah, no traps. Who said traps? I didn't say trap.
No, I wouldn't do such a thing.
So Bond is visibly like not okay with this, but I guess but Blofeld's like, well, you're not going to climb down again, are you? That's madness. Just get in the lift. So he's like, all right. And then he gets in the lift. He's looking for a trap, and then Gas just knocks him out because it was a trap. Surprise.
Yep. I forgot what the trap was. I was like, maybe the floor's going to fall out or something like that. I think that's actually in A View to a Kill. Maybe that happens. But no, the good old Gas. Always rely on the gas.
Yeah, the Thunderball. Well, that kills them, I guess. But
yeah.
But yeah, like I think Bond is waiting for the floor to go out because he jumps to the side.
Yeah.
But no, he gets knocked out. And Mr. Whit and Mr. Kidd show up and take him away. Which is, I guess, how you're supposed to know that they work for Blofeld.
Yeah, even though they never talk to him, I guess this is the only connection you can really make between the two.
Yeah, because they wouldn't be they wouldn't be here otherwise.
Yeah. So they take... So, as I was saying earlier, they never kill in a normal, boring manner. They like to do it in more interesting ways. So they take the knocked out Bond and take him, put him in the back of their car. And one thing to point out is that whilst in the trunk of the car, Mr. Wint's perfume is there, and it's like Bond is thrown on top of it and it cracks. It's a little point that you have to make note of to make sense of later on. And that he is driven to some sort of like site where they're laying down pipelines and stuff, and they just leave him in a big pipe and drive off. I guess that's a interesting death. Not really, but yeah, Bond's there, and eventually all the diggers and stuff come along and start placing all the bits of like sections of pipe which Bond is in. They don't notice that a body's in there. They just plonk it straight in, get on with it. They're on the clock. They got to get this done. So we get Bond waking up in a big pipe system, which kind of reminded me of Dr. No, going all the way back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also it looks a bit like the gun barrel, which I thought was quite interesting. Like, it looks like he's in a big, giant gun barrel.
What I guess I'll say about Mr. Whit and Mr. Kidd here, and where something that the parodies of Bond always points out, putting Bond in these ridiculously, these crazy situations where they don't confirm he's dead, they just put him in a not great situation and then bugger off. This is like a very intentional part of these characters, and we see it multiple times here, and then both times they put Bond in the situation, of course, he just gets out. And I think, most people would kind of think of, Blofeld or Dr. No or Goldfinger with the laser table. Like, you think of those classic villains as using that cliche of putting a Bond in a city situation that he can clearly escape from or give him a chance. But really, it's not those villains. It's these two guys. But again, they kind of make it a very deliberate part of their characters throughout the film.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's lots of characters, really. Otherwise, Bond wouldn't still be around. I mean, that is you have to have Bond in these situations. Otherwise, how would it continue? And as far as they go, I mean, this one, I'm only going to defend this one because of one particular line. But Bond is in the pipe, shuffling along, trying to get out, and then all of a sudden, there's this weird sort of, I don't know what robot thing that's like driving down with wires sparking, and I don't know if it's meant to be doing something like, I don't know, sealing or checking the... Joe, what, I'm overthinking it. It's just this little thing that's chasing Bond down. It looks dangerous.
I had no idea what it is. I'm going to just say, completely agree. It's just this thing on wheels that drives through the pipe that for some reason has loose wires that are just freaking out.
Yeah, it's just zapping away, and oh no, Bond's going to get zapped by it, and it's getting closer and closer and closer. What's he going to do? He just jumps on it and like shorts it out using these wires. It's really not much of a threat at all. It turns out it's nothing. So kind of a bit of a waste of being in a pipe. I think there could have been maybe something more interesting there. I mean, we've had it before where there's like water and stuff. Could they not have done that again? Quite simple. But reason why I do like this scene still, despite the sort of wasted potential, is when the workers, whoever is laying the pipe, notice that this little machine's gone bust. They have to go and get it out of the system. So you cut to them opening one of the hatches and complaining about having to go down and get it. And as they open the hatch to get into the pipe, Bond walks out because he found the exit, and very happily, very nonchalantly just walks out of this pipe and says, and I wrote this down because I just love this line so much. I was just out walking my rat and I seem to have lost my way. Because he spots a rat in the pipe. But it's just, it's more of that silly Sean. It's just the way he delivers that line. It's just great. It's just great. It's so absurd. I loved it.
No, I agree. I really like that line as well. And I like Sean or James Bond just talking to a rat for a bit.
Yeah.
Like, this is very much the cocky, confident James Bond of, I'm in a terrible situation. But even though I'm in the situation, let's just have a casual chat with a rat while I'm here, because I'll find my way out. And then he does, and as he is, he's just, again, very casual about it. It's very James Bond, and the line is not, like, it's not a pun or anything. It's just funny to hear someone say that coming out of a pipe and be very casual. This is very much a part of Bond I enjoy.
It's almost like an anti-joke. It's not funny, but it is at the same time. So, thumbs up from me.
Yeah, so he escapes... and then we cut to Bond with Q and Felix on the phone. So in the previous scene, we established that there's this voice box technology that Blofeld has created to pretend he's Mr. White. So Q is then, I guess, flown over to Vegas to develop the same technology. And using the same technology, James Bond pretends to be... Saxby, the guy who runs the casino, and calls Blofeld, basically trying to get information to where Mr. White is, because they believe that Mr. White is actually a recluse and is hidden, but Blofeld probably knows where he is and is keeping him safe or keeping him away as part of the scheme. So they're trying to find out where that is, and Blofeld accidentally just mentions casually about his summer house, but Blofeld says, we got to move the plan forward, so let's get rid of him, and then they hang up, and now Felix and James Bond know, yes, Mr. White is in the summer house. Felix says, yep, we know where that is, and then they go to move over, and this kind of ends with them saying, thank you, Q, you're the best. And he's like, this was easy, I made one of these as a gift for a kid at Christmas.
Yeah, I think all those compliments earlier on has gone to his head.
Yeah, he thinks it's all that,
Come on now, Q, calm down.
Yeah, so again, we never get that traditional, here's all your gadget stuff, but somewhat similar to the Moneypenny stuff. I like that they're mixing it up a bit and still getting Q involved. So yeah, it's not that formula, but I can get involved with Q just kind of being flown out and showing up and introducing this stuff in. I would say I don't really like the voice box as a gadget, at all. I just think it's kind of dumb to hear these characters with different voices like this, even if the lip syncing is surprisingly good.
I thought that, yeah.
It does all fit, which is weird because the actual dubbing can be just awful sometimes.
Funny that.
So I don't understand that, but yeah, I don't like this as a story mechanic and a gadget at all. I think it's very dumb, very odd. Maybe it's just because nowadays it just doesn't seem impressive at all. It might just be that it's aged badly, but yeah, I wasn't into this. This is the last we really see it, but I was like, yeah, that's really stupid. All right, fine.
It is stupid. But then it's in good company, I suppose, with this film, so...
You're not here to argue that it's not stupid, this film.
Exactly. I have nothing to defend against that. So we get on to the next scene where they're heading to Willard White's summer house, and the CIA is there, Felix is there, Bond's there, but Bond's like, let me handle this, and go it alone for the first part anyway. So, which I thought was a bit of a strange choice. It probably does explain it, but it's just he's going in there alone is the point. And he enters into the room or into the house, and there are two women here. And then this is the bit. So I remember you saying about these characters before, and I thought you were referring to Mr. Wint and Mr. Kid. You kept saying Bambi and Thumper. And I'm like, who the hell are
Yeah.
they? Here they are, Bambi and Thumper, two gymnasts or acrobats.
It's something like that. I thought it would be tied to the circus somehow.
Yeah, I thought so too.
It's never said.
But yeah, they're basically the bodyguards here who are meant to be keeping Willard in place. Although he later does mention them in sort of like a jokey way. So is he friends with them? Or
Yeah, I think the whole point is that, like Blofeld hasn't come to this place at all. This is just where Mr. White just is and hides out. And he just has these two attractive women who also act as bodyguards. So, like, yeah, I think they're nothing to do with Blofeld at all. Just all to do with Mr. White.
So they're he's just relying on Willard White not wanting to leave.
At this point, yes. So I think they know where he is. They're keeping an eye. And that's why Blofeld is like, let's just go and kill him now. But while he's leaving, like while he's there, I think they're just leaving him to it.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that linked, like the whole recluse stuff, yeah.
I do want to quickly say, though, before we talk about this terrible scene, as Bond enters the house, we do get a really great remix of the Bond theme. That more slower sort of sound, which I don't think we've really heard that kind of version before, but it's something that I feel like it's quite iconic for the Bond franchise, this kind of more slowed down version, or sections of it, maybe I should say. And it was really awesome to hear. The soundtrack, I don't think is anything amazing, but it's definitely a step up from the last film, and this does feel a bit more John Barry than before, and we do get some really great kind of songs throughout this film, despite the more kind of camp tone. So it's a big improvement on the music front overall, although I can't remember any time that we hear like Diamonds Are Forever as part of the score.
I do recall it being in there because I remember it, but it's not a lot, and it is very subtle, yeah.
I can't think. It's not like Goldfinger where it plays all the time.
No.
If it's in there, you could easily miss it because I know I did.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. It's not the best soundtrack that we've had so far, but better than the last one. And there are some good ones. I do like some of the casino themes, and it all sounds like very. It does just sound very 70s, obviously, and it's quite good. And also they reused the track from Rush of Love for a lot of the action scenes as well, which was an interesting choice. I mean, it's a good theme, so why not? But kind of why they brought it out now was a bit odd.
Yeah, it was closer to the Thunderball version, I think.
Oh, okay. Oh, right, yeah. That would make sense.
So then basically, Bambi and Thumper are the bodyguards. So we have these two women in their underwear fighting Bond. And I guess the whole gimmick with this is that they're attacking one by one. So they do these like flips and stuff like that and cartwheels. And then one says like, go get him, Bambi. And then they go to attack. It's like, now it's your turn, Thumper. And I mean, I want to get your thoughts on this because it's stupid, but I've said that before. And that's not, you've got armor against that. That just knock that away. That's what I'm here for. Don't get me that. But this is really stupid. Like, this is another one where I feel like I don't get what they were going for. Is this supposed to be sexy because it's sexy women fighting Bond and sexy women? Is this supposed to be something you laugh at because of how absurd of it? Or is it supposed to actually be like an intense fight scene between them? I just don't think it ever really knew, and it jumped between them all, and it just made this feel really awkward to me. Especially, again, I don't want to point out again, I've said it a lot of times, Sean being older was just like not the time to do this. So I didn't enjoy it. At this point, I was too worn down to get upset. But to me, this was just bad. Like, yep, another terrible scene. Cool. Nice. Thanks.
I love how it's like the film was worn you down.
Well, I'd already gone for food at this point, so I was a bit calmer because I had stopped about 20 minutes ago. I stopped and then came back.
Right.
But yeah, again, this was just like, I just can't. It feels pointless trying to critique this scene because it's like, by this point in the film, you've already made up your mind. Like, this is not going to be like, oh, well, this is just ridiculous. Like, Like, no one's ever going to say, this is not when someone throws their hands up. You either kind of enjoy where it's going with and probably, I guess, are into it, or you don't like me and you're just like, yeah, just another terrible scene. Cool. All right, moving on.
Yeah, you would have left the cinema by now. This wasn't for you.
I would have left, come back, booed, and then left again.
I would say, with your question about what sort of scene is this and what do I think of it, I would probably lean towards it trying to be sexy. Only because
of Sean.
Only because of sexy Sean, yeah. And the
in
grunting.
the pink tie.
No, because... Well, basically because it wasn't the other two that you mentioned. So it wasn't an intense scene.
Process of elimination. What is this scene? Well, it's not a horror.
But also because... The thing I didn't really get when watching it, but now it kind of, as you say that, is that Bond doesn't really try to fight back. He's almost just sort of letting it happen. And I'm guessing, like, you could say, well, maybe, yeah, like the sexy women, he likes this. It's a bit of fun for him, even though he's getting like properly kicked and smacked around and everything. Maybe that's what he likes. I don't know, but that's the only thing I would kind of take from that, is because he just sort of like stands there and doesn't really make much of an effort to do anything against them, really. So it's just a sexy scene with Bambi and Thumper.
Oh yeah, sexy Bambi. Oh, don't want. Why? Yeah, why those names?
Yeah, good question. I mean, Wint and Kid, they're from the book. Though I doubt it. I doubt it. But eventually, Bond sorts them out in the pool. They start to they try to drown him in the pool, and he sort of flips it and holds them under. And that's eventually when Felix and the rest decide to show up. Took them long enough. But yeah, Bond's just there having a bit of a laugh by this point, like keeping them under and toying with them. And they eventually find out that Willard White is underneath, in the little room underneath, and get him out. And that's it.
I don't get this though. Like, sure, sexy scene, whatever, but this is such a bad way to end a fight. Like, this is just, I'm going to drown you, and then he just drowns them, and that's it. But I just don't buy it. I just don't buy that he would be able to overpower both of them in that way. And it's quite horrible how long he holds them underwater. I'm just like, again, it's another one was like, just a little bit uncomfortable. Like, just let him breathe. Jesus. Like, he holds them there for ages.
I mean, they did try and kill him. This isn't like Bond strangling the woman 5 minutes into the film. I think they deserved it.
Well, I guess there is, yeah. They did start it, I suppose. But even then, it's just like, I just don't buy it. I don't buy Sean Connery being able to overpower them both in this way.
You're just an ageist, Tom.
I am. Yeah, it's true.
So what are they going to do? Fight me? They're too old.
Hey, I like Q, all right?
Oh,
if we want to talk sexy scenes.
Sexy Q with his sexy gadgets.
Yeah.
All right, enough of that. No more sexy scenes.
Yeah, as you say, they find Mr. White, who was in the toilet for some reason, and basically Felix and all these US agents are there and explain a little bit of what's going on. I don't think they fully go on. They go to talk, but then old man Baxby has shown up. So earlier, Blofeld was saying, let's move the plans forward, which basically meant Baxby go get a gun and go and kill Mr. White. So he gets there late, before or after Felix and Bond does. So he shoots at them, but they just shoot him back.
Yeah.
And that's the end of Baxby.
Yeah, just get shot. You do get a good line from Willard White, which kind of very quickly sets off. I mean, the whole toilet thing as well is the start of it, but that he's not the smartest of guys, because then, yeah, Baxby just gets shot and is there next to Bond and he's like, tell him he's fired. Bond just does the best like deadpan look over. It's really good.
Yeah, it was nice. But then we cut to a casino where we see Q playing a slot machine, and I'm in two minds about this scene because it's Q and Tiffany, where Tiffany is asking Q like, hey, Mr. Q, can you put a good word in for me? And Q just kind of starts rambling off about his gadgets and stuff until she leaves. And I like the idea of Q being out and about and using his gadgets, and I still find it funny, this idea that they've been dropping throughout these films of like, Q is just boring.
Yeah, talking about lint.
Yeah, and as soon as he starts talking, everyone's just like, huh? Yeah, cool, checks out. I like that little thing that goes in there, but like, yeah, this is more Tiffany just being quite irritating and awful. Just like, hey, Mr. Q, you can put in a good word for me, huh? I was like, oh, what? Like, please.
Boo.
Yeah, please stop talking. I mean, Q sells the scene again with the sex, but outside of that, I like that little bit. I like Q and Vegas cheating and stuff and having a little extra gadget, but yeah, could have done without Tiffany.
I did love Q's gadget, which is it shows off and it's like a little ring that does an electromagnetic blah 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 blah. But when it has a little shot of the ring close up and it's like the ring has the 3 little slots on it to show what it's trying to get, and it's like 3 bars because it's getting the bars on the slime. Just the detail in that is so absurd. I just love it.
Oh, he's such a nerd. It's great.
Yeah, the devil's in the detail with Q, and he needs to get the tiny little reels on the tiny little ring so they match up with what he's trying to do. Good man. So after Q has, well, not even after he's finished rambling, because Tiffany just walks off, she runs around the casino for a bit, and I guess kind of based on the reaction of Q and now worrying about what's going to happen to her, she's kind of in that mindset. So she eventually goes out trying to escape and tries to get into taxis. It doesn't really work. They keep driving off. Eventually just gets pushed into this car that's outside waiting. And inside is Blofeld looking completely normal.
Yeah, it's just Blofeld. It's like, what's up? It's me, Blofeld. How's it going?
Yeah, and then that's it. They just go off to the next place and nothing weird at all happens, right?
Why is he in drag?
I don't know, Tom.
This is when they really like, if you hadn't, I guess Bambi and Thumper was enough, and I already said, if you didn't know by this point, I guess they're just pushing it. They're really pushing their limit. They're pushing your limit, Joe. Will they really make you break? Because it's just this one shot of Blofeld's in the car in drag with the cat. And then after this, never again. Never brought up, never mentioned. He never does any other disguises. He's just in drag for this one scene. And it's never explained why. It looks absolutely ridiculous. And I don't get it.
I think he looks very good in drag. No, it is ridiculous. I did wonder at one point, like, is there a deleted scene which explains this a bit more? But I don't think there is. I think it's just they wanted a bit of a shock. Funny, haha, Blofeld in drag. Drag's funny. Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work apart from the sheer level of like, huh? And that's it. Because then, as you say, it never gets mentioned again. You could start reading into it and be like, oh, maybe Blofeld likes cross-dressing. That's an interesting. No, nope. It's just there, and then it's not.
So, in terms of ranking all the Bond girls, where does Blofeld in drag land?
That is I'm glad you finally asked that.
The real questions. We're getting to it.
I really want to see you make a video now, like completely deadpan, ranking all the Bond girls, and then Blofeld's number one.
I've got a video in the works.
Yeah, good.
About Blofeld. Is Blofeld in drag the best Bond girl?
I think, but you kind of said it yourself. If this bit annoys you by now, then how have you survived the rest of the film? Like, I took it at the face value of it being like, oh, that's funny, that's weird. Like, why is he in drag? But you just have to by this point. So there's no point keep harping on about it, I suppose. But yeah, it's weird, it's bad, but that's just where we are now in this film.
Yeah, I might just check out of this and just record. Like, I'll just say, that's really weird and I hate it, but I don't care anymore. Just loop that. If you describe the rest of the film and then just loop that in editing, that's probably how the rest of this is going to go.
All right, then. Well, I'll see you later then, Tom.
All right, yeah. Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.
All right. Okay, so I'm so glad Tom's gone because now I can really talk about this film. So you might be thinking we're near the end of the podcast, but I want to go back to Mr. Wint and Mr. Kid. I have a lot more to say. No.
I'm not editing any more than I need to.
Oh, hi, Tom. I didn't know you were still here.
Oh, I am still here, Mr. Joe.
Ah, Mr. Tom. Okay, right. Let's
Ugh.
move on. Let's wrap this up because we're nearing the end. Back in the White House, Bond is with Willard White, and there's a little bit about all the stuff that Blofeld took over and the operations and everything, and they're kind of wondering where. Oh wait, no, hang on. Has
You
the
missed a
satellite
bit.
launched yet? The satellite
a
has to
bit.
launch.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just quickly go over it. So basically, Bond leads Mr. White to that lab that was in the desert where the diamonds were and the laser was being worked on. White says, "Oh yeah, laser refraction and things like that," and basically demands like, "Hey, what's going on here? What did you say?" Because it turns out Blofeld had called this place with the voice box and saying like, "We want this and this to happen," and basically it turns out that Blofeld, pretending as Mr. White, launched a satellite into space. And while Mr. White is on the phone with the operators of this satellite, they're saying, "Hey, we've lost control. Everything's going crazy here. We don't know what's happening." And then we cut to space, where we see this laser is separating from the rocket and the satellite, and there's nothing they can kind of do about it. But the laser opens up, and we see a big diamond circle ring thing behind it. And it turns out the whole big plan was Blofeld now has control of a diamond power laser. I don't think they really explain why it needed to be diamonds. It's just supposed to be like, diamonds to power a laser.
Yeah,
That's a
diamonds
cool
are cool.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, diamonds are forever, as they say. And it's going across North Dakota. And now we see them using the laser to attack places. So it destroys a missile inside a Solo, and it destroys a submarine. And I have to say, this is really cool. I really like this setup. I like how this feels like an escalation of other Blofeld schemes, and the idea of him having this laser and just attacking places and actually going there and seeing it blow up. It's like, even though the literal last scene of Blofeld has been him in drag, it still feels like a pretty cool Spectre kind of plan. Like, it took us like 2 hours to get here, but I'm like, yeah, this is cool. I actually like this.
I'm quite surprised by that because I would have thought you would have been talking about the visuals of this scene, which isn't.
Well,
I mean, it's like you got to take it when this time is made, but it's not the best. It's not the best where you're getting the effects of the laser hitting, like building and then a sub and the sub just all turning red. It is silly, but I guess it sells. It sells what's happening, and like really bad superimposed explosions on top of things. It's fine. I guess like you're saying, like it takes parts of previous Spectre plans. Like they've already done satellites and stuff in space, so it kind of makes sense as to how they'd be able to do that quite well. They've had experience, and you only live twice. I think as far as Spectre Blofeld plans go, though, this one is a little bit. I don't know. I didn't actually really know what the Blofeld wanted or what he was trying to do, apart from to blow things up. We later learn that he's trying to sell nuclear supremacy by only leaving one country with nukes and stuff. But it just seemed like he just liked blowing things up. So he was.
Yeah, I think that worked in its favor, though. It was like Blofeld's is in charge of this really powerful weapon, and it's just attacking. And I think that's quite intimidating in itself. Like, as you say, there is a plan that's revealed, but I think that works. Like, it feels like Spectre kind of going all out is kind of what I sort of wanted with this film, of a bigger Spectre plot where Blofeld's a little bit more unhinged and stuff. But, it's not the film we got, but we get hints of that here with the fact that he's just attacking random, like he attacks Chinese countries, like a load of Chinese missiles, where we get a silly scene of a man just screaming, like, ah, zooming in. So as you say, it's a bit silly, but again, it sells it well enough. And I thought, this kind of matches Blofeld in this film very well, while still being actually quite intimidating.
I would have liked, similar to what we've had before, though, where you get the shot of someone in London being like, "Oh, these are the terms," and we've got X amount of time to do this, and it's just that feels like it's missing from this bit of the film. And I think that links into what we were saying earlier about how it doesn't really feel like a Spectre thing. It just feels like Blofeld on his own in this, because you're not getting that wider ripple effect of his plans for other countries. It's mentioned all this stuff, but I don't really think it's ever shown.
No, that's true. Like, you only live twice. You got to see the US and Russian diplomats and things like that, right? Like,
Yeah, just a
and
little bit of that.
Thunderball as well did it. So yeah, you're right. That stuff just doesn't exist. It's just Bond and Mr. White, basically.
Yeah.
But this all wraps up with Bond and Mr. White basically in Mr. White's office where Blofeld was before with the doubles, being like, we need to figure this out. What's going on? Bond then just like, oh, it's a tape. It's like, all right. I don't really know how he comes to that. I know obviously he saw the tape from before, but like, yeah, it's just one of those leaps in logic that he makes so the finale makes sense. But it's like, yep, it's a tape. They need a tape to control this thing, so we got to get rid of or swap out the tapes. And then he looks on the map of all the different property, well, not properties, I guess, like endeavors and Mr. White's monopoly, and he lists them all. And Mr. White says, I don't have anything near California. So they say, well, obviously that's the one that Blofeld added. And then they decide, yep, let's go there. And they go to the oil rig, which is off the coast of California.
Baja California.
That's California.
Yeah. But I mean, it's good amount of detail for Blofeld to go in and actually update the map, put a little oil rig off the side of California.
Yeah, painted it, I reckon. Really put in the details.
He likes to keep things consistent.
He had a lot of time on his hands when he was up there.
Maybe all of his doubles helped him. All together.
One did the modelling, one did the painting, one made cookies.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just a nice day with Blofeld.
Maybe he did that just to have friends.
Oh, well, that's sad.
See, now you feel bad.
Well, not that bad, but maybe one of them was in drag. Maybe that wasn't Blofeld. Maybe that was a clone.
Another one. Ooh.
The drag clone that no one liked.
Oh, poor drag clone. So then we cut to the oil rig where Blofeld is, got his base of operations, and this is now the end of the film, like the end location, the villain's base.
Oh, thank God.
We're nearly there, Tom. I gotta say, I think it's different having an oil rig. I don't think it's the most interesting of bases that we get, really, like, especially compared to the volcano base and stuff from You Only Live Twice and Piz Gloria from the previous film. Like, they're really unique, interesting looking places, whereas this is just an oil rig, which eventually explodes. But Blofeld is there with the scientist guy that we saw earlier, and he starts to panic because of the kind of ultimatum that they've given out. They're not getting any responses, which is kind of funny, actually. Like, Blofeld's doing this and no one's replying. It's just, I didn't think that would happen. Like, it's just funny that everyone's kind of ignoring him. But yeah, so the scientist is panicking because they don't actually want to start blowing things up. Then they have like little models of the satellite going around and the targets, and kind of looks a bit like Dr. No, with loads of machinery everywhere and people looking busy and everything like that. Lots of henchmen all around. And then we get Bond turning up. So Bond is turning up. I don't know what, if anything, is said before this, but like there's no sort of attempt to sneak in or do anything like that. Like, he literally walks up in a big inflatable ball across the sea. He's like dropped out of a plane, which is caught on the radar. Yeah, and so he comes up to the little dock section of this rig and just says hello and just comes out. I don't, obviously his plan is to go and stop the satellite, but is it explained why he just literally walks up to Blofeld rather than try and do anything?
Like, I took it as you say, no one has responded. So I think Blofeld makes a comment saying, oh, why did they send you? So I think they were expecting some sort of diplomat, and say if they arrived with a load of helicopters and Bond parachuted in and stuff like that, then that's an attack, right? And an aggressive move. But this one is such like a passive move that potentially could be a diplomat to negotiate these things, that they just kind of allow it, and just having Bond on that rig is helpful for them. So it's like deliberately being very passive in order to make sure that they don't attack by not like sending a ton of people there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is how all diplomats arrive at places in giant balls.
Oh yeah, everyone knows about the spiky balls on the ocean. That's
Yeah.
CIA
Yes.
did it for years.
So, yeah, Bond is kind of arrested and taken to Blofeld. And this is where you get more of Blofeld not really trying to stop Bond. We're in the full on gloating. This is my plan. This is what I'm going to do. Giving Bond actually quite a nice little tour of
I think
the
he
whole...
says tour. Does he actually say let's go on a tour?
Yeah, like come and have a look around. Help
And then
yourself.
they go on a tour. It's like, oh, lovely.
It is very nice of Blofeld, and this is where Bond notices the tape and where the tape would go, ready to do the old switcheroo. So Bond goes up to this big machinery bit that has the tape in it, and kind of in a very childish way, like starts touching things, and Blofeld's kind of keeping an eye on him, and he pops out the tape that's meant to be the one controlling the satellite, and as it's on the floor and Blofeld says to pick it up, he does a little switcheroo with a fake tape that he has in his hand and puts the fake one in the machine and keeps the real one. There you go, day saved, end of the film. Supposedly until until Tiffany gets involved. But yeah, Blofeld sees this and says like, oh, you're beginning to become tiresome now, Mr. Bond, and sends him to the brig to be locked up, which, by the way, is a really bad brig when it has a big hole in the middle of it. But before he does that, just as he's being taken out, Oh yeah, but we forgot to mention that Tiffany's on.
Yeah, when Bond arrives, Tiffany's just sunbathing.
Yeah.
Because she's just like, yeah, whatever, I'll just go with the winning team.
Yeah. And it would have been nice to have more of that, Tiffany, I suppose. But well, maybe not. Maybe more Tiffany's not what we needed. But yeah, I forgot to say Tiffany is on the rig as well. And it's here where Bond... This is the thing that... Like the whole switcheroo thing that goes on here confused me at first. It shouldn't have really, because it's not that confusing. But Bond gives her the real tape, as in to get rid of it. But she thinks it's the fake tape ready to switch back. It's more like very farcical stuff, kind of like how Bond got into the satellite, the satellite lab place with the whole fake persona thing. It's very much like that. You get this in an episode of Frasier or something, like this sort of level of confusion. But yeah, so he gives her the real tape.
Okay, yeah. So Tiffany puts that tape back and then goes back to Bond and say like, "Don't worry, I switched the tapes." And then she's like, "You're an idiot." But basically, the reason why Bond gave Tiffany the tape in the first place is because he gets searched. So he gets searched coming onto it, and then Blofeld says, "Search him again, just to be sure." So that's why he gives Tiffany the tape to kind of get rid of.
Right.
But then, yeah, he's quite upset about that. But then we see that Bond is being taken to the brig and goes to tie his shoe nonchalantly. And there's a red balloon there. I don't know why. I don't think he brought it with him. I don't remember seeing it in the spiky ocean ball. But he sees a red balloon and just lets it go. The idea being that he's trying to signal to say, "Don't worry, I've switched the tapes. It's all good." And then very shortly after he sets the balloon off, which is saying we're all good, Tiffany then says, "No, I've switched them again." Of which Bond's like, "You stupid twit."
You stupid twit.
Yeah, but Felix and Mr. White sees the balloon and says, "Well, that's the signal, so let's go." So now the real tape is in the machine, but Felix and the Americans are coming with helicopters to assault the oil base and take down Blofeld.
Yeah. That's basically it. I mean, all you really need to know is that everything ends up getting attacked and exploded, which is where we end up seeing the end of Blofeld. This whole last bit of Blofeld, I don't know whether to like it or hate it, because it is just more of the same Blofeld we've seen, but it is also really bad. I don't know whether it's so bad even beyond my limits for this film.
Oh no.
So yeah, as you say, the CIA and all that come and start to blow up the base, and there's just like massive explosions and shooting everywhere, and getting the good old trampoline shots of people from explosions and stuff like that. And whilst that is happening, Blofeld. I even wrote down this line because I just think if there's one line to sum up this Blofeld for me, it's everything's blowing up around him, so he needs to escape. He gets on the phone and just says, in such a serious voice, "Prepare my bathtub immediately."
Yeah.
It's just so good. Prepare my bathtub immediately.
He needs it. Now's the time.
I want a bathtub. I love the delivery of that line. I mean, I don't really love what comes next and what a bathtub actually is and how he, well, he doesn't die, I suppose, but how he goes. But yeah, Blofeld leaves and gets into what is like a mini submarine, basically.
Yeah, it's like just the front bit, really. It's tiny.
Yeah, this teeny tiny, funny size submarine, and one of the henchmen is on a crane lifting it up and about to drop it into the ocean. And yeah, chaos is going all around. People are like shooting everything. So this is where Bond, sneaking out of the brig, is back on top and spots this, goes over to controls and takes over, and just starts messing, with Blofeld. So yeah, it's just about to be landed on the ocean and picks him back up and swings him around, and you get all these great insert shots of Blofeld just like fuming, so angry.
Put me down, you idiot!
yeah, just that's why I like it is really silly, but I think Charles Gray just about saves it. And eventually Bond just sort of swings this little sub into the side of the satellite controls, which I presumably stop the satellite because you don't really see much else happen. Maybe it was one of the explosions, but that seems to do the trick according to the film.
It's just there's a whole like sequence here where it's a countdown again. It's another one of these where there's a countdown to Spectre or Blofeld is about to do something really bad if the countdown gets to 0. So we gotta sort it out. And yeah, as you say, the solution is because the tape thing didn't work. He just uses Blofeld's own crane and sub to just smash into the controls, and presumably that saves the day because again it's like 1 minute to go, but he just blows it up, and that's that. But to start on a positive with this whole ending sequence, I do think it, as you say, the initial idea of Bond having like Blofeld trying to get away, but Bond like taking over the crane and having him freaking out is pretty good. Like in terms of humiliating Blofeld without there kind of being this physical fight, we already had that in the last film, so it's nice that they did something a bit different. But this whole end bit is just so whatever. Like, it's so forgettable. The oil rig's an okay setting, but it's not great, and it's just explosions and shooting again. And we already did a helicopter assault in the last film, and I don't think it was anything to write home about, but it was a lot more exciting and interesting than this. We spend more time with Tiffany just doing antics than we do on anything interesting, and Bond does bugger all because he's in the brig for most of it trying to climb out, and yeah, he does the Blofeld stuff, but he's not even really a part of it like he is in other finales, and it's just also forgettable. I mean, like I said, I'm quite worn down by this point, and I feel quite worn down at the moment. I'm quite tired talking about this film for so long, but yeah, I mean, this bit was just so whatever. Like, it's the worst finale by far, but it doesn't make me angry. It's just like, yeah, that was just kind of rubbish. Like, the setting wasn't very interesting. The way it plays out isn't very interesting. It's all just the tropes we've already seen in a ton of Bond films before. Just forget it. Like, whatever. Let's move on. Let's get to the end of this thing.
All right, then. Let's get into this thing. So, yeah, day saved. Satellite's fine. No nuclear annihilation type stuff. And so we cut to Bond and Tiffany on a cruise ship. We're just about to go on a cruise ship. They're
no
back
confirmation
home.
of what happened to Blofeld.
No.
Nothing. It's just they're on a cruise ship now. Great.
I guess the idea with that is that they maybe wanted to keep the door open for Blofeld to come back. But could have been done a bit better, perhaps.
But there's just no confirmation of anything. It just blows up and Bond jumps in the ocean. And then hard cut to this on a cruise.
Yeah, lovely, nice cruise ship. All these little streamers and everything. They're heading back to England, and it's all nice. Like, you expect this to now be the typical end of a Bond film. Bond and the Bond girl at some nice place, having a kiss. That's the usual end. And so you kind of get that to an extent. You know, Bond and Tiffany are in a little balcony section outside on the ship, and then we haven't got rid of them quite yet. They're back.
A certain song kicks in.
Oh, that iconic tune. Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd are back. I don't know why they're back. Because I guess it's like who are they? Who is their allegiance to now? Blofeld's meant to be gone, but maybe that's like a sign that he's not. I don't know. But anyway, they're back and they're still here to kill Bond and Tiffany, and they do it, as I've said before, in their own special way, where they're dressed up as the waiters. They come in with a big tray of food and wine and everything, and they're like really selling it, all this lovely food and everything, and it kind of then gets very quickly back onto just craziness with Mr. Kidd in like off to the side preparing a bomb in the cake, which has has a the typical cake bomb, like a fake cake with it, pops it on top. There you go. That's how they're going to kill him. Never mind the ticking or whatever it would sound like. No, it's fine. It's la bomba surprise or whatever they called it. So they're just about to do that. And Bond, then it's something to do with wine, right?
So he initially says, that's quite strong aftershave. And then following on from that, he says, it's a shame you don't have any of this type of wine. Of which he said, I'm very sorry, sir, we ran out. But Bond says, well, the wine you just poured me is that type of wine.
Oh, got him.
To basically expose them of not knowing about their wines.
Yeah, and then that's how we knew the smell from when he was knocked out, and that's how we linked it to. There you go. Right, so they attack. Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd attack, and Mr. Kidd has like these flaming kebabs or whatever they are, and is about to start stabbing, and Bond throws some alcohol on him to set him aflame, and he kind of flails around and falls off the side of the ship. So that's Mr. Kidd gone with, and then Mr. Wint with him, Bond. I think the cake gets knocked over and it's revealed.
Tiffany throws the cake at him and just misses.
This is after she literally just goes, "Ee!"
Yeah.
Which reminds me of like Wallace and Gromit or something. The bomb's revealed. So Bond ties the bomb through like the tails, through the Mr. Wint's legs in the tails of his. I don't know. Yeah, he basically ties them up to the bomb and throws them off the ship. And it explodes. The end.
Cue credits. Great job, everyone.
Yeah. Wow.
I will just quickly say, it's bizarre how Mr. Kidd, you say he gets set alight. It's really gruesome.
Yeah.
Like, it's surprisingly gruesome. You see him get set alight, but normally in these sort of films, you would see him be like, I'm on fire, then falls off. But they like cut back to him, and I don't know if they've actually put in some practical effects of his skin melting, but you see it develop. Like, this looks like a dude who's burning to death. You're like, why is he getting such a grim, realistic death? Like, right at the end here. It was horrible. And then Mr. Wint gets a really silly death of like, oh, not me knackers, and then flipped off the boat. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, it was a bit Carry On-esque at the end there with that, with the ooh, matron. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It's the film likes to keep you on your toes. You never know where you are. 1 minute it's silly, then it's horrific, then it's back to silly, then it's weird, then it's drag, and it's just you never know what you're gonna get. And that is done.
I know what I got, Joe. I very know what I got. Garbage. So I guess I'll start because you did it last week. I think I guess I'll say on a positive note that doing this podcast and talking about it did show that there was elements to this film I enjoyed. I think it's a stronger soundtrack. I think there are some decent action bits in here. And some of the comedy, the ones that kind of leans back to more cheeky Sean and stuff, did really work for me, and I think that was good. And I think the Blofeld was solid, apart from some very questionable choices in there. But even then, that was still pretty good. So again, trying to treat it as its own Bond film, I can compliment it for those things, and this did make me appreciate that. With the car going to the side, I thought that was cool, and climbing up on the White House, that was cool. Some good stuff in there, but man, I just was not into what this film was putting down. The Mr. Wint and Mr. Kid staff hated it. The Tiffany just hated it. And the tone is so all over the place that, yes, they did mostly want to make a campy film, but it just feels like so many scenes and so many elements are just pulling itself in other directions, and stuff that's meant to be kind of funny and weird just isn't. And it's just awful across the board. I just have such a terrible time watching this film. And as I always said, the story, boring, really boring story, only starts to get interesting when Blofeld shows up, which is right towards the end. And I mean, Sean isn't as bad as I kind of remember. I don't think if he was younger that would really change anything for me. I still think I would still very much dislike this film. It doesn't help, but again, I don't actually think it's that big of a deal, all things considered. But yeah, just the stupidity, I was just not in for the ride, and I still hate this film. And well, let's just get out of the way. It's last, dead last, easy. Put that at number 7, done. That's an easy one. And maybe something will make me more mad, but I just, I can get into some more campy Bond, and I hope I do. I hope I do prove that to be true. But this, I just think, is just so tonally all over the place, so badly made, so the plot holes are terrible. The plot is just so badly put together and badly done. I just hate it. Just no. I never want to see this film again.
Damning review there. Out of interest, what is your number 6? What is this behind?
You Only Live Twice.
Oh, okay, yeah, that adds up, I suppose.
Well, I guess, yeah, I should say this is the first one I didn't enjoy, because those first 6 I think are all good, and I enjoyed every single one of those films, even if I had some things I didn't really like. And ranking them, yeah, I feel pretty confident with my rank, but I would still say from Russia With Love down to You Only Live Twice, all good films. All very enjoyable. I liked them all. This is the first one where I was like, I just didn't like it. It's just bad. So this will kind of help separate my list out a little bit. So it's not like 7 to 6 is a small gap. No, there's a huge gap there for me, which is going to get filled up with some of the other not so great Bond films, which is a shame because, again, the other 6 ones really enjoyed.
Okay. Well, for me, I think it's kind of been obvious through this podcast that I do have a soft spot for this film, despite all of its flaws. I mean, just going through this now today, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff about this. Just like, it's hard to defend in many places. But I guess that's kind of it. Like, I'm not trying to defend it because I know it's bad. All I can say is, like, purely an entertainment level, when I sat down and watched this film, I had a lot of fun because it is just so absurd and tongue in cheek and naff in places, like so bad it's good type naff. I think Connery was better in this than You Only Live Twice. I think he was just a lot more into it. I think, as I mentioned, I do have like something about Vegas. I just like seeing Vegas on film, well, in other places as well. But like film, I just think, and that like 70s Vegas with the lights and everything, it just looked great. So that was some bonus points for me. And Mr. Wint and Mr. Kid are very divisive characters, but for me, I like them. I think they are just creepy and weird and not like anything else we've seen before and probably won't see for a long time or ever, maybe, in the whole series.
Oh, no.
Oh, what a shame, I know.
Oh.
So I won't harp on too long, but I think for me, I put this at number 4 on my list.
4.
So just to quickly say, that's From Russia with Love, Thunderball, and Dr. No are above it. And below it, which is really going to like annoy some people, but below it is You Only Live Twice, Fun and Majesty Secret Service, and Goldfinger.
God, what are you doing to us?
Which is still last. Goldfinger's still last.
Yeah, I mean,
so right.
I'm not surprised that you put this above Goldfinger. Like, that doesn't surprise me, but man, that's brutal to put this above those 3 films.
Yeah. I know. What can I say? I'm going against the grain here.
So that's going to be very interesting, though, because obviously you are now proudly and confidently saying, I like my campy Bond films.
Yes.
So I do hope you stick to that. And if you say like, the Roger Moore ones, put them below, they know Diamonds Are Forever, I think that's when the mobs are going to be coming at your door and burning down your house.
I don't know. I actually do think some of the Roger Moore ones might go below Diamonds, but we'll have to see.
Well, some of the later ones maybe, but
yeah,
that's fair. But again, these next 4, I guess I would kind of expect them all to go higher on your list. For me, they have to go higher. So that's fine. But we'll see.
Yeah.
So we did it. It's the longest episode we've done, which I'm really happy about. I can't wait to edit this.
I really am happy this is the longest one so far. I hope this is the longest one of the whole podcast. And it's Diamonds Are Forever.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So luckily we got through it. For me, from what I ranked, this is my low point. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting because my low point came at number 7. Your low point comes at number 24. So let's see how you feel when we get to Spectre.
I can't wait.
I can't wait either. But yeah, so that was Diamonds Are Forever. The Sean Connery era is officially over. We are now done, and we can now look to the east as the sun Is it the east that the sun rises?
Yeah.
Yeah, the east where we can see a nice shiny Roger Moore coming up just on the horizon there.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, brings a
Beautiful
tear
sight.
to your eye.
It really does.
I've gone through hell so I can get to heaven, I hope.
I want that tattooed of Roger Moore's face.
That would be so good. But yeah, any last thoughts before we finally end this podcast forever?
Please no hate mail. That's all I'll say.
Maybe a little hate mail, maybe a little bit.
Just no cake bombs then, all right?
Imagine if I get hate mail. That could happen. Imagine if all the comments are like, Tom's an idiot. This film's great. I'm like, no. Why?
It's opposite day. No, I think you're
upset.
safe. I think you're safe. I need to be the one that's checking the windows.
We'll all check our windows.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for listening. You have been listening to episode 7 of the Bond Revisited podcast. The Bond Revisited podcast will return next week with Live and Let Die.